Howdy, 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 my name is Sasuke, and Merry Christmas! And also, welcome back to Let's Read the SCP Foundation Wiki. In this episode, we're going to be starting with, I believe, the Oscar bug. So let's get right on in that. Okay. I'm not going to lie, I was half expecting it to be related to the Oscars like the Academy Awards. I don't know why I thought that, but when I think Oscar, the first thing I think is Academy Awards, and the second thing I think is that dude from Hey Arnold. Anyway, it's Euclid class. Instances of SCP-1131 brought into captivity are to be kept in a 1x1x1 meter acrylic vivariums for the remainder of their lives, usually no more than a few weeks. Persons affected by 1131, given the group designation of 1, are to be kept in a standard person's holding cell for further research. Foundation personnel stationed in places where instances of 1131 have manifested should wear insect repellent containing p-methane 3,8-diol, whatever that is, at all times. Is that an actual thing? Let's find out. Hopefully I don't get put on a watch list for trying to Google this. It is methylglycol. Okay, well, it's real. Interesting. Personnel entering a containment unit must wear a full level A hazardous material suit, the hazmat suit. Any bites made by 1131 on any person must be noted, and any persons bitten must immediately be detained. It's a member of the species Caliceta longiareolata and appears under direct observation as a normal specimen of that species. Well, since it's not going to tell us what that is, it is a mosquito. Instances of mosquitoes range in size, but are on average approximately 8 millimeters long and weigh 1.7 milligrams. Instances of 1131 refuse to feed from animals other than mammals. They appear to be of intelligence limited to its species and acts on instinct alone. When a female bites a mammal, the affected person or animal, immediately given the designation 1, begins a physical transformation lasting several days. First, the subject loses consciousness and enters a comatose state. Then, beginning at the site of the bite, the tissues of 1 begin to change, starting with the dermis and progressing inward toward muscular and skeletal structures. All subjects take on the same physical appearances and attributes, that of a Caucasian human male named Oscar Pelishok, age 57. Well, that was unexpected. Subjects usually awaken within 24 hours of the completion of this transformation. Subjects affected by 1131 are indistinguishable from each other after the completion of this transformation. All subjects claim to be Oscar and show signs of distress upon awakening. When asked for the last remembered calendar date, subjects offer September the 5th, 1968. If 2 or more members of Oscar are introduced, they will all claim the others or others to be imposters and become distressed with the presence of the other or others. If this encounter is allowed to escalate, these arguments will become heated, but no subjects will resort to physical violence due to self-proclaimed pacifism. It is unknown how many instances of 1131 exist. When instances of 1131 breed, not all offspring less than 1% exhibit the effect. There does not at this time appear to be any way to reverse the effects of it. Addendum. 1131 was recovered in Blank, Massachusetts when an embedded Foundation agent noted several discrepancies in local vital records. Of note was the fact that an individual named Oscar Pelishok had multiple vital records indicating date of death, but all had been redacted by local authorities. Blank Blank Life Insurance Company had investigated Oscar multiple times, and criminal charges for insurance fraud were filed in 1969, but ultimately were not pursued due to lack of evidence. A member of 1 after arrest for insurance fraud in January 1969. The only birth record of Oscar Pelishok was issued in 1911 at Blank Blank Memorial Hospital. The first death certificate was issued by that same hospital September 7th, 1968, with the cause of death listed as redacted. It is hypothesized that this is the original Oscar, and the subject identified in these records was given the designation 0. Exhumation of the body indicated no genetic differences between 0 and any members of 1. Furthermore, forensic analysis of the body indicates that some physical damage, namely skeletal scarring from a broken wrist estimated to be several decades old at time of death, exists in all members of 1 as well. 0 was married at the time of his death to Mary Pelishok, now deceased. Currently, records indicate 47 separate instances of 1, of which 4 are still alive, currently detained at Site Blank. No members of 1 retain any recollection of the experiences of past members of this group. Addendum A. Once 1131 initiates a feeding sequence, there does not appear to be anything which will reverse, hinder, or stop its effect, including laceration of affected skin, amputation, or death. Addendum B. List of known individuals affected by 1131, data expunged. C. Transcript of video interview with a member of 1. Interviewed by blank. Clearance level 2/1131-937-439. Why are these related to these two SCPs? One sits on camera in an orange jumpsuit sipping a cup of coffee. Doctor sits just off camera, only his arm visible. This member of 1 was detained shortly after entering a comatose state and has been isolated since that time. Please state your name for the record. My name is Oscar Pelishok. I've told you that before. What is the last thing you remember before waking up in this facility, Mr. Pelishok? Well, I just got off of work. I called a cab to get home. I got in the cab and the driver was jabbering at me and I wasn't paying attention too much. Then I got home, said goodnight to the missus, read a book, got in bed, and woke up here. Did you experience any sort of discomfort at the time? Any itching or burning sensations in your skin like those from an animal bite? Not that I remember. Can I go home now? I ain't done nothing wrong. I got a wife to get back to, you know. I'm sorry, Mr. Pelishok. You will not be allowed to leave. Why? I ain't done nothing wrong. I've got rights, you know. End of log. Also, looks like there's a licensing citation? That doesn't really affect me any, probably. Snake tongue! It's safe. What is this? There's no sense crying over broken relics? Okay. Well, it's safe. SCP-1132 is to be kept in standard living quarters furnished with a bed and appropriate religious icon. Alright. A facial restraint will be supplied to 1132 to be worn at all times when interacting with personnel. This restraint must cover the mouth completely and immobilize the lower jaw. To facilitate personnel safety, entrance to 1132's chamber should be announced by voice or knocking to give the subjects time to don the facial restraint, should it not currently be in use. Should the restraint become dislodged for any reason, unarmored personnel are to maintain a minimum distance of 1 meter from the subject until the restraint has been replaced. Subject is to be fed 1 freeze-dried mouse, rehydrated once per day in its cell. Subject is allowed limited escorted sojourns in the facility where it is housed. Efforts to teach 1132 English have been hindered by the subject's illiteracy. Until subject has learned to understand spoken English and or to write in any language, 1 member of personnel assigned to 1132 is to be fluent in the Eastern Huasteca dialect of modern Nahuatl? I probably said that wrong. Description: SCP-1132 is a female human of indigenous Mexican ethnicity, approximately 25 years of age. The subject's tongue, esophagus, stomach, and both intestines have been replaced by a female Bolthrops asper, Ferdilance, or Nauyaka, leaving only 6 centimeters of the subject's own rectum intact. The connection between the reptile and the subject's digestive system is seamless. Due to its condition, 1132 cannot speak, though it breathes normally. The subject lacks a uterus, though no sign of hysterectomy or other surgery is present. How the uterus was removed has not yet been determined. Approximately 0.6 to 0.7 meters of snake-like coiled in the subject's stomach, where the stomach should be, giving the snake the ability to lunge out of the subject's mouth. As long as the subject's mouth is closed, the snake will not force its way out. Aside from its anomalous state and length, far exceeding what is typical for B. asper, the reptile is otherwise a normal member of its species, possessing a venomous bite and treating 1132 as a territory to be defended. Its eating seems to provide sustenance for both itself and 1132, and it must eat at a rate greater than normal for a snake, but less than that of a human. On the rare occasions that 1132 is bitten by the snake, the subject will fall into a coma for a period of time between 1 hour and 1 day. Treatment with antivenom can wake the subject prematurely, but is counter-indicated as the snake remains active and unrestrained during these periods. The subject describes these periods as being like dreamless sleep and reports no other physical side effects other than pain and swelling from the fang punctures. Addendum. Interviews with the subject have consisted of yes or no questions, and as such, information on the origin of his condition have been difficult to gather. Upon recovery in blank Hidalgo, Mexico, persons familiar with 1132 stated in interviews that they believed the subject had been punished for defiling a sacred relic said to belong to the Aztec goddess, Coatlicue? and had been cast out from tribal society for the transgression. Testing of fragments of the object in question reveals no anomalous properties. Let me see how to pronounce that. Coatlicue. Or Coatlicue? Or Serpent Skirt. Okay. Interesting. Next up is intravenous sin. What, like a syringe full of sin just going into your arm? 1133 is to be kept within a secure testing chamber at site blank, equipped with one standard power socket. Samples of X should be stored in an on-site bioresearch vault. Both should be guarded by a minimum of one armed personnel at all times in order to prevent unauthorized access. Description: 1133 resembles an ordinary hospital standard intravenous fluid stand. Only the infusion pump displays any anomalous properties. The tube, stand, power supply, and intravenous drip bags are entirely ordinary and can be replaced. With the exception of the tubes passing through the infusion pump, all openings on the device are fused shut, including the rear battery compartment, requiring that SCP-1133 be connected to a standard power socket at all times. All attempts at opening 1133 have so far failed, as the casing has proved remarkably resilient, such that the force required to penetrate the casing would likely cause irreparable damage to its internal components. As a result, internal examination has been postponed until primary research is complete. The console of 1133 possesses 9 buttons not present on a normal infusion pump. The first 7 are labeled with a corresponding number, and the final 2 with the words extract and infuse, respectively. The remainder of 1133's controls are non-functional. When supplied with power, it will display the message, "Select Operation Settings," at which point either extract or infuse must be selected, after which 1133 will activate if it is connected to a living human subject. If it is connected to a cadaver or any non-human species, it will display the message "Operation Failed" and shut down. If the extract setting is selected, one of the number buttons must be selected. This will cause 1133 to begin extracting a substance hereafter known as X from the subject, corresponding to the number chosen. Selecting the infuse option will result in the pump functioning as would be expected, infusing the substance placed in the drip bags into the subject's bloodstream. Only X can be infused in this way. The use of any other substance will result in the message "Operation Failed." X appears to be synthesized directly from the subject's bloodstream upon extraction, and breaks down almost immediately upon entering the bloodstream during infusion, making it almost impossible to observe its impact on human physiology. However, both the infusion and extraction of X produces equal and opposite changes in the behavior and morality of the subject, which are easily observable. Subjects are not normally aware of or disturbed by these changes, even when the subject had prior knowledge of the effects. To date, 7 different varieties of X have been recorded, each with a distinct color and effect, and each corresponding to a specific number on 1133's console. Samples of X have no observable effect on the human body if administered by any means other than the infusion's function. All attempts to synthesize X in laboratory conditions have so far failed. For detailed analysis of X's chemical properties, please refer to document 1133-blank. There seems to be limits to the quantity of each variety of X that can be extracted from any given subject, which seems to vary from individual to individual depending on the personality of the subject. For example, subjects with a history of kleptomania seem to have larger natural reservoirs of 3 available for extraction, and requiring less 3 infusion to display more extreme symptoms. It is unknown whether an upper limit exists for the infusion of X. Below is a list of the 7 known varieties and their effects. Well, let's check it out! Light green. Increased appetite, so greed. Not greed, gluttony. Subjects infused with sufficient quantities of one are unable to resist the compulsion to consume any form of food in the immediate area, including those normally repulsive to humans, including rotten food, raw meat, and animal feed. Subjects will frequently become violent when denied food. Several D-class subjects infused with one have died as a result of choking, or in extreme cases of stomach ruptures caused by the sheer quantity consumed. In small amounts, one infusion has proved to improve these symptoms of eating disorders such as anorexia. Extraction effect. Decreased appetite. Subjects display a reduced enthusiasm for food, often forgetting to eat even to the point of starvation, although they can typically be induced to eat without the application of force. Red. Heightened stress levels or aggressive behavior. I don't know the 7 deadly sins offhand, so I'm not 100% sure. I want to say I don't know what the sin is called when anger is involved. Rage? I don't know. Whatever. Uh, those infused with large quantities of tube become dangerous and violent, often becoming hostile towards Foundation personnel. Following Incident 171-blank, any experiments involving SCP-1133-2 require 2 armed guards at all times. Extraction effect: reduced aggression and increased docile behavior. When large amounts are removed, subjects will often refuse to defend themselves, even from violent assault. Sorry, my microphone was freaking out. Given the potential of this process to make subjects more compliant, use of 2 extraction and interrogations or pacification of troublesome personnel has been considered, pending further testing. 3. Yellow. It appears to influence interest in material wealth, so that one is greed. Subjects typically become obsessed with financial gain, often showing signs of kleptomania. Subjects exposed to high amounts will often become violently fixated on shiny objects such as wristwatches or metal buttons. Extraction: loss of interest in money and material wealth, generally becoming indifferent to material possessions as opposed to actively generous. Subjects will often show reduced understanding of money and financial issues, as well as reduced motivation for the completion of tasks with material rewards. Blue. Increased egotism and self-confidence, so that one's pride. Although small infusions can lead to beneficial increases in confidence, further amounts will likely lead to narcissism and vanity, often resulting in violent attacks on any personnel the subject perceives as insulting them. Extraction effect: similar to 2, subjects become quieter and less assertive, although they will still defend themselves if faced with assault. Extraction of the maximum quantity of 1133-4 has resulted in attempted suicide in blank % of cases. 5. Dark green. Increases fixation on the possessions, achievements, and privileges of others. What's that one? Not lust, the other one. It's not vanity either. Whatever the one for wanting things with jealousy? Probably jealousy. With subjects often coming to perceive all others as better off than themselves. This has frequently resulted in uncooperative and abusive behavior in subjects, although subjects are typically not violent, instead preferring acts of sabotage or indirect methods of inducing pain and distressing those around them. Subjects disinterested in the possessions of those around them when... extraction effect. They're disinterested in possessions around them. Buying extraction seems to have comparatively few detrimental effects on subjects, although there is still a high risk of psychological damage and data expunged in all cases. Brown. Increases levels of general apathy and reduced energy, in some cases showing symptoms similar to those of moderate to severe narcolepsy, so sloth. Those subjected to high enough levels of 6 enter a coma-like state, and so far no attempts bar the extraction of 6 have proved successful in recovery. Extraction effect: increased energy levels, activity, and enthusiasm. In extreme cases, this can result in hyperactivity and symptoms comparable to attention deficit disorder, although subjects will more commonly suffer insomnia and mental fatigue, resulting from increased physical mental activity. And then there's purple, which is lust, increased sexual drive. In extreme cases, this results in symptoms similar to clinical hypersexuality. Subjects have frequently resorted to violence and attempts to satisfy the resulting compulsions, which has made testing the effects of 7 particularly troublesome. Extraction reduces the interest in sexual activity. Those having the maximum amount extracted typically become completely disinterested and in some cases repulsed by the idea of sexual intercourse. I really cannot for the life of me remember the word for the deadly sin regarding the red one. I don't think it's rage. But I really can't, like, it's not pride, because pride would have been the egotism one. So we got sloth, and we have jealousy, we got lust, and we got greed, and we have gluttony. I don't know what the last one is. I really don't. You would think between liking Full Metal Alchemist and having just recently beaten Persona 5 I would know, but nope. Nope. Lead paint. Well, hang on, my microphone is still freaking out. SCP-1134 is contained in Volatile Item Storage Warehouse 14 in a 3x3x4 meter room with one exit consisting of a standard reinforced airtight door. All interior surfaces of the containment room are to be coded in 1. Personnel requesting the use of 1 in containment procedures or security measures must be level 2 or above and must obtain clearance from Dr. Blank. His name is actually Dr. Blank? Really? 1134 is a circular polyvinyl chloride 10-gallon container of paint and primer mix bearing the label Blank Conglomerate No Mess Ballistic Grade Paint, color formula 366, and a translation below the primary label, which is slightly modified traditional kanji. No such company has been located at this time. All other writing on the drum is in this modified traditional kanji and deals with patent information and date of manufacture. Noted as presumably April the 11th, 2000 something, but probably November the 4th, 2000 something. The lid is easily detached and reattached. 1 is the liquid contained in 1134. It has roughly the same consistency as a high-quality paint and primer mix. There are currently 8.02 gallons remaining of the original 10, the remaining liquid having been used as paint prior to the recovery or in subsequent Foundation testing. 1 is a glossy violet in color. 1 is extremely hazardous due to the anomalous qualities of the liquid. Any amount of 1 that is allowed to gain free momentum prior to surface application quickly accelerates to a uniform speed of 490 meters per second, equivalent to a 3.57 Magnum handgun round. Larger amounts of 1 break into smaller uniform droplets, measured by a high-speed camera to be oblong, 33mm long, and very similar to its shape of bullets. Upon impact with an unpainted surface or obstruction, 1 behaves in a similar manner to a bullet. Unlike bullets, 1 does not lose energy when coming into contact with a surface or obstruction and will instead ricochet at a constant speed until making contact with a 1 painted surface or organic object. Once contact is made with a painted surface, the ricocheting 1 is absorbed into the liquid on the surface, and a corresponding increase in surface coverage can be measured. 1134 has been demonstrated to be exempt from damage due to 1. Once applied to a surface and allowed to dry, 1 has been observed to be completely bulletproof, withstanding impacts of up to a 30 caliber sniper round. But what about a 50 caliber round? Any surface painted with 1 will be undamaged by a force below 65,000 newtons, see test log 3, applied to the side that is painted. Force applied from the other side of the surface has been met with normal resistance for the surface up to the point which 1 forms a dry barrier. 05 note. We feel that despite the obvious benefits of 1, access must be carefully regulated by the research head due to the limited quantities we currently possess. Recovery Log Abstract. 1134 was recovered on July the 20th, 2004 in a warehouse belonging to blank blank. It was found among other supplies in the foreman's office, which appeared to be in the middle of renovation. Anomalous properties were determined after recovery agent Grolson accidentally spilled a small amount of 1, resulting in 4 deaths. When was this article written? This was written in 2017. Interesting. And that brings us to Living Village, which is Euclid. SCP-1135 is located within the boundaries of Site-36. A chain-link fence 3 meters high, or metres high, has been constructed around the object and marks the boundary of the affected area. A narrow ditch, 4 meters deep, has been dug parallel to and within the fence. This ditch is lined with impermeable plastic and filled with dilute hydrochloric acid in order to deter expansion of 1135 past the security perimeter. The area within the security perimeter is to be checked every 3 days by teams of researchers. These researchers are not required to be armed or otherwise prepared for a hostile environment, but must carry two-way radio communicators at all times while within the security perimeter, and should maintain visual contact with 1 or more fellow researchers at all times. Any new growth or development indicative of 1135 activity is to be noted. Should hostility on the part of 1135 be encountered during an expedition, all staff within the security perimeter are to withdraw immediately. No expeditions within 1135 are to be mounted within 40 days of such a hostile reaction, unless composed entirely of D-Class personnel. Any and all non-anomalous waste produced by Site-36 is to be deposited at least 20 meters within security perimeter by D-Class personnel at the beginning of each day. If this waste totals less than 500 kilograms on any given day, this amount is to be supplemented by on-site stockpiles. No attempt to damage 1135 structures is to be made except in the case of containment breach or with the permission of the site administrator of Site 36, currently Dr. Blank. Not that Dr. Blank, just redacted name. If such damage occurs, 1135 is to be treated as hostile for the next 40 days. No explosive materials or other items capable of major structural damage to 1135 are permitted within the security perimeter without approval from the site administrator of Site 36. Okie dokie, so what is it? SCP-1135 is an isolated village in the state of Blank, India. State? The village was attributed the name of Blank prior to its acquisition by the Foundation. It contains approximately blank 100 houses as well as several places of commerce and a Hindu temple. The structure of the buildings is unusual for the region as they are larger and built with far more technologically advanced materials than other villages in the area. All buildings are fully equipped with running hot and cold water, electricity, and sewerage, again unusual for the area. It is unknown how the homes receive electricity as they are not connected to any form of generator, and this is considered to be an effect of 1135. In addition, the roads in the village and for 2 kilometers around the village are also fully paved with asphalt concrete. Investigation of the building materials reveals strands of organic fiber running through all the buildings, and any permanent fixtures in the village not introduced by an outside force. The fibers do not ever appear to compromise the integrity of any structures. These organic fibers extend up to 3 meters below ground and form a network under the village. These fibers grow, repair themselves, and appear to absorb nutrients from the soil. As such, 1135 is considered a single living organism with certain similarities to fungi. The fibers of 1135 appear to be able to generate a wide variety of organic and non-organic materials around themselves, allowing them to generate the structures found within the village. This allows the structures to repair themselves, and periodically new buildings grow organically from the soil, maintaining structural integrity at all times during this process. Similarly, when space is limited, some structures will appear to collapse and disintegrate, the fibers within atrophying. 1135 appears to require some form of sustenance to survive. As well as absorbing water and nutrients from the soil, the organism appears to consume waste left within the boundaries of the village. Waste of all varieties left in the area affected by 1135 begins to deteriorate and decompose at an extremely accelerated rate. This process produces no odor and typically leaves no remains. This process does not affect living organic tissue, soil, or any object being used in some way by those within 1135. It is believed that 1135 converts these materials into nutrients for itself through an unknown process. If so, it is unknown how it differentiates between waste and other matter. If it goes for long periods without feeding, it will destroy structures, possibly in order to render them down for sustenance. Likewise, if 1135 has been able to consume large amounts of waste, it will start to construct new buildings and improve existing ones at an increased rate. If humans or animals cause substantial or repetitive damage to structures formed by 1135, the organism will begin to construct elaborate traps in order to injure, drive off, or kill attackers. These range from simple pitfalls and caltrops to elaborate traps which would indicate complex intelligence in a human. These traps will, if not triggered, disappear within a period of 20 to 30 days. Outside of these circumstances, 1135 is never hostile or dangerous to human life. Additionally, it appears to be able to differentiate between damage caused indirectly or directly by living organisms and damage caused by other forces. These findings suggest that it may possess some form of intelligence, but this is unproven. Addendum 1. SCP-1135 was discovered on blankety-blank-blank after a reporter investigating aid efforts in the area recorded interviews with local residents claiming that buildings grew overnight. 1135 had an estimated population of blank thousand at the time of its discovery by the Foundation operatives. Residents interviewed reported that the village had possessed anomalous properties for blank years prior to the intervention, after the village had been the site of a substantial housing development scheme orchestrated by an organization by the name of Mana Charitable Foundation. The Mana Charitable Foundation is apparently fictitious, and no attempts to identify those involved in the scheme have been successful. All residents of 1135 were expelled and administered Class A or B amnestics depending on how long they had lived in the village. All aid schemes in the area since have been monitored by the Foundation, although no other anomalies or any further information regarding the Mana Charitable Foundation have since come to light. Addendum 2. Following the routine observational expedition carried out on blankety-blank-blank, several buildings appeared to have developed security cameras on their outer walls and in certain indoor areas of the village buildings. These cameras have been observed to track waste disposal and research teams as they move through the village, and to conduct periodic sweeps of the village when undisturbed. Requests to dismantle one of the cameras for research purposes are currently pending approval by Dr. Blank. Probably don't do that, because that'll count as hurting the village and then it'll pitfall you. Next up is subjective directional gravity, whatever that means. So, SCP-1136 specimens are contained in separate 1x1 by half-meter terrariums secured with an isolated soundproof chamber at Site Blank. All fixtures within 1136 containment room must be bolted down or otherwise secured against shifting during a localized directional event. Experimentation with 1136 requires prior permission from at least 2 Level 3 senior researchers, and personnel within the containment area must wear magnetized boots or otherwise be secured against possible shifting. Alright then. 1136 appears to be a species of small lizards similar to Hemidactylus frenatus, common house gecko, and thank you for saying it in the article this time, and is physically indistinguishable other than its anomalous property. When specimens of 1136 are startled or frightened, they cause gravity within a radius of approximately 7 to 8 meters to align itself with its orientation, without affecting the specimen itself. This occurs instantaneously and without any measurable change in the physiology of 1136, other than that which is normal for a surprise response in normal geckos. This effect continues as long as it remains frightened, and the direction of the gravity shift will continually change to match its current orientation. Wouldn't that mean that as the gecko spun around in fear, that gravity would just also do that? That must suck. What was this one rated? Euclid, okay. 1136-1 was discovered on blankety-blank 1980-something, following anomalous reports at a local hospital in Redacted, wherein several children were admitted with minor injuries and limb fractures after reportedly chasing a gecko up the wall of their classroom. Class A amnestics were administered to all affected civilians, and several 1 specimens were located in and retrieved from the school. Addendum 1, Incident Log 12. On blank blank blank, Dr. Blank accidentally dropped a clipboard while within 1's enclosure, startling it and causing it to run up the wall of its terrarium. During the subsequent gravity shift, Dr. Blank was thrown against a nearby wall, which further startled 1 and resulted in a cyclical gravity shift that continued for several minutes. The doctor was finally removed and treated for multiple bone fractures and a severe concussion. It could have been several concussions, I don't know. Experiment log. 1 was successfully bred with a normal male gecko on blankety blank blank, and its offspring were determined to exhibit the same anomalous property as the original. These specimens have been designated 2 male and 3 through 6 female. Incident log 19. 1 was found dead in its containment area on blankety blank blank, apparently of natural causes. A section of the dead specimen showed no abnormalities or unusual structures. Incident log 26. Permission was granted by Site Command on blankety blank blank to perform a vivisection on 4. Upon incising into the specimen's abdomen, data expunged, believed to be a short-lived gravitational singularity, which caused catastrophic damage to the experiment site. Researcher note. Following an increasing number of anomalous incidents reported in the Redacted region, it is currently believed that there is a standing wild population of 1136 specimens. A Foundation containment team has been assigned to the area, but due to the small size of 1136 and its similarity to mundane geckos, complete containment of all wild specimens is expected to be extremely difficult, if at all possible. Well, so subjective directional gravity. So it wasn't even called the gravity lizard, it's just, hey, the gravity is changed by the lizard, so let's just call it that, because weird. This is also Euclid, 1137 is. It is held in a locked box in item storage locker 8A at Site 19. Level 3 clearance is required for access to it. It requires no extraordinary physical measures to contain, however, due to its memetic qualities, knowledge of its true nature is to be tightly controlled among personnel. See document 17 for a detailed description of anti-memetic safety standards. Description. 1137 is a blue glass sphere approximately 10 centimeters in diameter. To ordinary observers, it does not appear to have any special qualities, nor does it pose any risk. It is possible to take measurements of its material composition, weight, opacity, hardness, and... something flew past me. And any other physical properties of the sphere. However, its anomalous properties take effect if any attempt is made to measure the sphere's curvature or smoothness, or any other properties related to its spherical nature. If anyone does try to measure 1137's spherical properties, they will become convinced that it is in fact a mathematically perfect sphere. They will believe that measurements consistently return results confirming this, regardless of the accuracy of the measuring device being used. Due to the mimetic nature of 1137, it is unknown whether it actually possesses these dimensions, or whether observers merely interpret the measurements as such. Small samples taken from 1137 also display its mimetic properties, and do not seem to affect the perception of the shape of 1137. It is not actually necessary to perform the measurements oneself for a subject to fall under the mimetic influence. Merely being told that its shape is physically impossible is enough for the mimetic agent to take root. However, transmission in this fashion requires the listener to understand the reasons why a perfect mathematical sphere cannot exist in material form. Thus, mimetic transition to subjects without a scientific background is unlikely. It is also possible to circumvent the mimetic agent by specifying that 1137 only appears to be a perfect sphere when measuring, without actually stating outright that it is such. Once infected, a subject will become obsessed with the fact that, although all measurements indicate that it is a perfect sphere, it is physically impossible for this to be the case. This paradox will become deeply ingrained in the subject's mind. The subject will attempt to disprove this inconsistency, resorting to more and more accurate tools. Researchers have been recorded utilizing equipment including the on-site electron microscope in these endeavors. Despite this, they will never be able to perceive any results other than those indicating it is a mathematically perfect object, even when performing measurements at the picometer level, or picometer, depending on how you want to say it. After extensive testing during which they are unable to prove their conviction, the subject will eventually decide that 1137's nature must actually be possible. At this point, the secondary mimetic properties will take effect. The subject will slowly acquire the compulsion to reproduce an instance of 1137. Subjects with proficiency in a physical craft, e.g. sculpting, glassmaking, metalworking, will begin by attempting to produce a perfect sphere in that medium. Subjects without prior experience in crafting will attempt to learn. The subjects will continue attempting to produce replicas of 1137, but will always determine that their replicas are insufficiently precise. They will become increasingly frustrated and obsessed, and will often try to experiment in other media subjects, using increasingly unconventional materials, e.g. animal or human remains, to attain their goal. Eventually, the obsession overwhelms the subject's thought processes, with the subject foregoing sleep, food, and other bodily functions in order to continue attempting their constructions. They invariably expire either due to starvation or self-mutilation. Because a mathematically perfect sphere cannot actually physically exist, the spherical qualities were at first assumed to be its only anomalous feature. As a result, after being taken into Foundation's possession, researchers were immediately exposed to its mimetic qualities. Because of the mimetic effects are at first indistinguishable from ordinary scientific testing, redacted days passed before the Foundation realized its true nature. Because of this, an estimated blank 100 individuals were infected. Strict anti-mimetic procedures have been implemented surrounding knowledge of its anomalous properties, and a cover story is given to personnel lacking level 4 clearance regarding its status and true effects. Well, that's interesting. Book of Letters. Well, most books have letters, but this is probably something stranger than that. Whatever it is, it's Euclid. SCP-1138 should be stored inside a safe in Dr. Blank's office in Sector somewhere. Personnel with level 2 clearance or higher may access the object for research purposes with Dr. Blank's authorization. Personnel with strong philosophical convictions are to be denied access. Okay. Personnel should not dispute the object nor question the correctness of the information contained within. Okay. Once monthly, a researcher studying philosophical concepts, either by duty of service or for personal education, should compose an article containing at least blank references to the object. At least blank other personnel should familiarize themselves with this article. It must be archived afterwards. Description: SCP-1138 is perceived to be a book of philosophers and/or writers' correspondence. Though the writing style always corresponds to a given author, the vast majority of letters are forgeries, with a few found to be genuine unsent drafts. The book's author changes based on the scientific and personal interests of the reader, and its contents depend on the reader's beliefs regarding the author's ideas. 1138 always contains information that contradicts the reader's current beliefs, say Addendum. In other words, the reader, thinking that a philosopher adhered to a specific opinion, will find letters expressing ideas that directly contradict his, her, or its beliefs, written out passionately and in great detail. If the reader has no concerns for philosophical concepts, 1138 will contain letters from people the reader respects up to his or her parents, criticizing his, her, or its life position. Handling or reading the book has various effects. Readers who completely share the presumed author's views fall into a prolonged depression that they compare to being betrayed by a close friend. More open-minded individuals rejoice at first, sometimes lapsing into euphoria and stating that they finally found the truth, before becoming absent-minded and unable to concentrate. This condition lasts for about a week. Professional researchers who have definite proof of the falsity of 1138's information experience a strong desire to start a discussion. Should they start it, data expunged, followed in 24 hours by an invariably lethal stroke. The theorized cause of this is data expunged. Currently, there is no way of finding 1138's neutral form. In the presence of humans and or animals, the book retains its previous appearance. Handling 1138 with a remote control robot led to the book transforming to a tome of Isaac Asimov's letters, in which he gave proof that the 3 laws of robotics should not be used in robot creation. First, adherence to the laws will lead to those laws being broken, hence they are useless. Second, robots are more perfect than humans and should not be restrained in their actions regarding humans. The attempt was stopped, the robot and the remote controller used in the experiment were examined. Examination showed data expunged. If there is no scientific article written about 1138 in a month, the object disappears and reappears in the closest library or bookstore that can theoretically contain publications of letters. Therefore, if the book breaks containment, researchers assigned to 1138 should monitor the news and investigate each and every sensational breakthrough in philosophy and history. 1138 attracted the Foundation's attention in 19-something, when blankety blank, the leader of the Communist Party of Hungary, or is it Hungary? I don't know. I always heard people pronounce it as Hungary. Anyway, released a harsh criticism of V.I. Lenin, claiming that he had found a collection of letters in which Lenin defined Marxism as a fallacious and harmful theory and proposed cooperation with the capitalist West. Everybody who spoke against this criticism died in 24 hours, making the situation especially suspicious. Blankety Blank's house was searched. The only anomalous item found was a book that changed its appearance and contents when passed from one person to another. Later it was found that the object disappears if there isn't an article that references it written in a month. Employees responsible for 1138 got lucky, as the book always appeared in Sector Blank Library and was easily found. There are no known cases of the book's appearance before it attracted the Foundation's attention. Addendum. Some of the most interesting instances of 1138 are listed below. Marcus Tullius Cicero's letters, in which he claims that every conflict should be resolved through brute force. The search for compromise based on laws and morality was deemed unnecessary. Sedant Arma Toge was claimed to be a stupid joke. Niccolo Machiavelli's letters that explain negative economical, political, and cultural consequences should the medieval Italy become a united state. He also claims that a ruler should act within the law and ethics and never break these rules. Note that The Prince, the book which inspired the term Machiavellianism, is generally thought to have been a political satire by scholars. Blaise Pascal's letters describing Christianity as a faith most vile, false, and abhorrent to human dignity. Friedrich Nietzsche's letters claiming that Christianity and Buddhism are the reason for all of humanity's achievements. He also harshly denounces some people's aspiration to be themselves and not belong to the social mass. Fyodor Dostoevsky's, I probably said that wrong, letters in which he claims that a decent and happy life can only be achieved through denial of the existence of souls and a lack of compassion and beneficence. 05 Blank's letters, in which he requests that all humanoid SCPs within Foundation custody either be released or terminated. In addition, he claims to have data expunged. Dr. Blank's preliminary conclusion. Currently, we cannot determine if the object is sapient. Maybe it is sapient and creates information that contradicts our beliefs in order to provoke us to argue and become its victims. If that is the case, killing is a way of sustaining its life, and the object's behavior is the way it hunts. Maybe the object is not sapient and simply retranslates thoughts from another reality in which philosophers and thinkers came to different ideas. Further study is necessary. Okay. The broken tongue, as opposed to a snake tongue. It's Euclid, though. Are all 5 of these Euclid? What it used to say, by authorization of O5 somebody, object is housed at Research Area 39, but not anymore, because following Incident 1139-1, it was moved to Research Area blank. When not being used for testing, it is to be enclosed in a 75 by 20 by 20 centimeter block of rubber, molded into 2 pieces, with a Faraday cage surrounding the block, placed on a static-free workbench. Dang. The containment room for the object shall be made of unreinforced concrete, medium thickness of 3 meters, and shall be illuminated at all times by gas lamps. The humidity level should remain between 70 and 80% at all times. Used to say the doors shall be made of a non-conductive high-impact ceramic materials, but now it says following Incident 1, access is via 3 containment doors, the outermost door consisting of steel, with a metallic threshold grounded in case of electrical discharge. The 2 innermost doors are to be constructed of non-conductive, high-impact ceramic materials. No electrical devices, including pacemakers, watches, or recording devices, are to be brought into the containment room except for testing purposes. And no event man electrical device capable of creating an alternating current be introduced to the containment room without authorization of 105 personnel. In no event may an electrical device capable of producing more than 1,000 watts be introduced to the containment room without written authorization of 205 personnel. Research Area blank shall remain equipped with 2 lightning rods at all times, neither of which shall be grounded within 200 meters of 1139. Following Test 1139I, at least that's what it looks like it says, and by order of 05 blank, the staff of each Foundation site must include 1 Level 3 staff member previously affected by SCP-1206. I don't know what that is or why yet. So, 1139 consists of a metallic gray rectangular block roughly 20 centimeters high and 5 centimeters square at its base. The overall density of the object is roughly double that of iron, and the object is denser near the top. The object has thus far proved impervious to both deterioration and damage, making a determination of the object's age impossible. The sides are patterned with square protrusions in an unrecognized pattern, which can be confirmed by touch. Viewers of the pattern or of photos of the pattern observe the protrusions as block letters in a language that they are familiar with, but this is merely a visual illusion. No subject has reported any subsequent change in the appearance of the letters. On the bottom of the object there are 4 1mm by 5mm crevices, each coated in a copper-colored substance. No new effect has been observed through the manipulation of or application of electricity directly to the crevices. Upon application of a direct current, the object affects all individuals within a given radius through unknown means. Any person within the radius of effect begins speaking and writing in a new language, though they apparently believe they are speaking their native tongue. Subjects lose the ability to speak or comprehend any prior known languages. Linguistic analysis indicates that the new languages are fully formed languages, but all attempts at translation have been met with complete failure. Attempts at translation continue. Subjects have proven incapable of learning or relearning any real-world language after exposure to 1139. Class AA amnestics successfully counteract the effect, though subjects are thereafter of little use to the Foundation, and Class AA amnestics are not advised in future testing. See Experiment Log 1, which is down there. The radius of the effect is exponentially proportional to the wattage applied to it, with a static shock creating a radius of 0.8 meters, and a direct lightning strike estimated to create a radius reaching beyond data expunged, potentially resulting in a redacted scenario. Developing practical methods of containing, controlling, or reversing the effect is ongoing and should be considered a level Chi priority. Possible use as a worst-case scenario planetary defense is under consideration. 1139 was recovered during Incident 98564/K. Mobile Task Force Delta 5 frontrunners raided a Church of the Broken God outpost in Normal, Illinois. A basement contained an apparently demented and violent elderly man holding 1139, who was quickly terminated. In this room were over blank handmade documents, including stone tablets over blank 1,000 years old, and modern paper showing minimal wear. Note that the earliest documents predate the Church of the Broken God over something 1,000 years. The documents do not appear to be written in any known language, and blank 100 different languages have been identified. Okay, the first document is regarding Incident 1. At 4:30 p.m. on July 27th, 1997, over blank scattered civilians' vehicles approached Research Area 39 from both access roads. Research Area 39 was put on blue alert and Procedure Theta Tau was implemented. The 4 ground-level Foundation personnel were initially able to maintain their cover identities when speaking with the trespassers, and discovered that the latitude and longitude of Area 39 was distributed as the location of a youth jamboree. Pursuant to Procedure Theta Tau, the trespassers were told that Research Area 39 was a hunting lodge and they had been sent to the wrong location. The departure of the trespassers was stalled due to a constant stream of new arrivals. Approximately blank 100 adults and blank 1,000 youths arrived in total. At precisely 4:52 p.m., approximately blank of the adults and blank of the children pulled weapons from camping gear and attempted to breach Research Area 39 in a coordinated attack. Battle cries consistent with rhetoric of the Church of the Broken God were heard, as well as references to the tongue and the voice. A perimeter breach occurred and lockdown was implemented. Mobile Task Force Row 5 Bee Sting converged on Area 39, countering the assault and containing the fleeing civilians with acceptable casualties. The surviving civilians indicated that revised coordinates were distributed via an email a week prior, though the source of such information could not be effectively determined. The survivors were given Class C amnestics and re-questioned using known Church of the Broken God secret codes. 3 additional members of the church were detected and terminated. Area Command utilized cover story Beta Zeta, and the remaining civilians were provided grief counseling. Area 39 decommissioned. Somebody said, "This is unacceptable. I don't care that the damn church broke silence first. We cannot allow this much attention to come down on one of our locations. You had better pray this media hype about gun-wielding scouts dies down, and reporters don't find Research Area blank. Request upgrade to Keter status, Air Supervisor blank. Request denied." How is this not Keter status? It's at the minimum the mouthpiece of the broken god. It can cause, if it gets hit by lightning, nobody's going to be able to speak to anyone ever again. How is that not Keter? I guess it's because they have the ability to contain it, but only as long as they keep it away from any and all electricity forever, which eventually is going to give. So, Addendum C, or this testing log. Linguist Dr. A, wattage 200 watts of alternating current. Subject exposed to active 1139. Subject grabbed his head and screamed, making a noise that redacted, including 3 Foundation staff, and Dr. Blank suffered a broken wrist and persistent headaches. Remaining staff placed in quarantine for fear of mimetic properties. No such properties evidenced themselves and staff were released from quarantine and returned to duty without incident. Containment and testing procedures revised. Okay. Same linguist. The subject was D18394. Okay, I had missed who the subject was. Subject is semi-literate prior to the test. Told to recite alphabet song during activation of 1139 to confirm exposure. Exposure is followed by only non-verbal communicating. Subject shows no signs of distress, though displeased by the researcher's silence. Dr. A, after seeing the mild success in rudimentary nonverbal communication, grabbed the closest thing to a picture book from his office, giving the subject a copy of the Voynich manuscript. Subject ignored the pictures and began attempting to read the book, sounding out words as he went. Notably, he read the book backwards and from the middle of each page outward. All observations indicate the subject understood the book and found it to have a sad ending. Well, for this one we used the alphabet and a book. It should be simple enough to learn how to speak it. 2 months after testing, Dr. Blank is placed on voluntary administrative leave due to stress. Subject 18394 terminated and all documentation locked in long-term storage. Okay. Addendum F? Subject D18328. Same linguist, direct current. Subject asked to write a long memorized phrase down on paper, followed by the alphabet and numbers from 0 to 50, reading each word or number aloud. While walking to the table, subject exposed to 1139. Writes out a text of unknown language, speaking as she does so, and shows no notice of her change in language. Subject is capable of speaking English, and no effort at reintroduction to the English language is made. It is noted that the language from F is different from all prior instances. We have a Rosetta Stone for this one. This should be simple to decode or prove as nonsense. 4 months after testing, placed on mandatory administrative leave due to stress. Subject is terminated and all documentation locked in long-term storage. Subject: the doctor, linguist, that doctor, and another doctor. 200 watts of direct currents. Without approval or oversight, Dr. A exposed himself to 1139. It is notable that Dr. A spoke 8 languages fluently prior to the experiment. Dr. L took over as linguist for the experiment, SCP-1139-K. Dr. A exhibits the same symptoms of prior subjects, though he seems shocked by the verbal and written communications of Foundation staff. It appears that Dr. A now knows 8 new languages, and by pointing at different places on an unlabeled map of the world, each new language has been associated with the language he is trying to speak. Dr. A has been unable to communicate beyond nonverbal pantomime, and has since lapsed into inactivity and depression. Moved to long-term care medical facility and kept under suicide watch. Okay. 2 subjects, and now the Dr. L linguist, 200 watts of current. They were exposed to 1206 prior to standard exposure, no effect on them. Same thing. So whatever 1206 is, it makes them not be affected by this SCP. Okay, so yeah, we're gonna move on. That brings us to Gurgles. Is Gurgles also gonna be Gurgles is safe with a name like that? Okay, fine. Gurgles. SCP-1140 may be kept in any secure storage area of sufficient size. It is currently in room R.4.13. For accurate and rigorous testing, however, it is required that the subject is kept in a room with at least 2 meters of clearance in each direction for movement of testing equipment, and is supported at least 30 centimeters off the ground by 4 clear perspex rods, one mounted at each corner of the base. The base is to be mounted upon a weighing apparatus which is connected to an alarm. The alarm is to sound if the weight of the object changes more than 0.4%. And there's a footnote. This allows for changes due to humidity and moisture absorption. Endoscopy equipment is to be stored in the storage area's equipment locker at all times when not in use. Description: SCP is a chest of 7 drawers painted with clear gloss varnish over oak. The chest is 140 centimeters in width, 49 centimeters in depth, and 91 centimeters in height. The drawers' dimensions are top to bottom: 3 drawers 40 centimeters wide, 21 centimeters tall, 46 deep; 2 drawers 70 wide, 21 tall, 46 deep; 2 drawers 70 wide, 31 tall, 46 deep. The anomalous behavior is observed when the central drawer in the top row of the chest is open at least 2 centimeters, whereby under certain circumstances vocalization can be detected from within the chest. This vocalization has been designated 1. Testing has shown that the circumstances include the presence of a single prepubescent child, the presence of a single postpubescent who has significant mental retardation. Testing suggests that an individual with an IQ of less than 55 will prompt anomalous behavior, but to ascertain a more accurate figure would require unreasonable resources, or any adult who was assisted with redacted. Access to this data is level 5 only. Dismantling the chest has revealed that there to be nothing within the cavity behind the drawers capable of producing vocalization. Presence of speakers or any other electromagnetic equipment capable of playback has been ruled out by the use of metal detection apparatus. As the anomalous vocalization only occurs when a single individual is present, remote control equipment must be used during testing. Presence of the equipment seems to have no effect on testing. Although 1 is for all experimental considerations a disembodied voice, any attempts to reach towards the rear of the drawer during such time as when the voice can be heard results in injury. This appears to only occur to live human beings, as does not occur when 1 is inactive. The wounds are consistent with having been caused by a large claw, and are most similar in pathology to wounds caused by a large ratite, ostrich, emu, or cassowary. Recovery log. The item was recovered from the dining area of a house in blankety blank. The house was otherwise unremarkable. After application of class amnestics and neurolinguistic programming by a field agent, the family remains in situ, with the chest having been replaced by a non-anomalous replica. SCP-1140 came to the attention of a researcher during periodic checking of psychiatric reports. Operation Durden is the system of scanning computers which search the databases of psychiatric institutions for keywords which may suggest anomalous behavior. In this case, the keywords were imaginary friend cross-referenced with blank. And a field agent was sent out to interview both the report subject and his family. Interviews revealed that the youngest member of the household had been found on several occasions sitting on the floor near 1140 and having conversations with what the family believed to be an imaginary friend. The amount of time that the child spent doing this, in addition to his refusing to move for hours, resulted in him being reviewed by a child psychiatrist. interview log. Recovery 11. Recovery interview A5. 6-year-old male. When did you first start hearing the voice? I heard him talking to me when I walked past him once. Can you remember how old you were? Oh, it was after my birthday. I was 6 at my party. Less than 8 months then. What did the voice say? It's not a voice, it's Mr. Gurgles. Is that what he says his name is? No, I made it up. He doesn't tell me his name. What does he sound like? He sounds like he's on the news. On the news? Yes, he sounds all posh like Prince Charles. I guess it's a British kid then. And what does he say to you? We just talk about me, about school? Does he talk about himself at all? No, I asked him why he was in the drawer once, and he said he wasn't in the drawer. I asked him where he was then, and he said that he was only a representation in this dimensional? It can be reasonably assumed that this was a representation in this dimension. Did he say anything else about himself? I asked him what his house was like, and he said he didn't want to tell me. He got a bit angry, so I didn't ask him again. What did he say when he was angry? I couldn't tell, his voice went all crackly. It was scary, I didn't like it. Okay, interview C1. 19-year-old female. Lusotomy? I don't know what that means. What does that mean? The surgical cutting of white nerve fibers within the brain, especially prefrontal lobotomy, formerly used to treat mental illness. Okay, so 19-year-old person, a 9-year-old woman who had gotten one of those. Hello, hello! Pushes door shut. A researcher enters the room and reopens it. Oh, wait, is the researcher SCP-1 or is the drawer SCP-1? He's gone now. Who is gone? The man? Yes, the man has gone. We can talk. You can help me. What can I do? I can talk to you. Are you from England? I'm from England, yes. I want to go to England. I need you to find me some things. Can you do that? Oh, I can't find things. They say at the hospital that I'm always losing things. Have you asked your mom? The following was inaudible during the recordings and has been reconstructed using forensic audio analysis. How did it feel? Did he make a noise when they tore it out? Did you... when it came out? I bet you inaudible all the way through it. Okay, so the stuff he's saying, y'all can read it on the screen, but I'm not going to read it out loud, but... I don't like you! You tell lies! I hate you! Let me out! Mr. Gurgles is a liar! He's a fucking liar! Let her out, I tire of her, she can't help me. This is the only occasion that one has spoken directly to a member of Foundation personnel. Let's see. 28-year-old male, brain damage following a prison stabbing. I can hear you breathing. It's rude to not say hello. What? Where are you in there? Begins pulling at the door. When it is fully open, he reaches inside. Please, I would rather you not do that. Where are you in there? Stop that. I would much rather we, at this point, D49-283 pulls his hand back and begins crying. There's a laceration at the back of his hand and wrist approximately 8 millimeters deep and 65 millimeters long. You hurt me! You hurt blank. Well, blank, I did ask you not to. I would recommend applying pressure to that with a dry cloth and then apply ointment to it to assist healing. I apologize for my actions. During the test conversations, the area behind the drawer was constantly monitored by an endoscopic camera, a thermometer, and barometric indicators. At no point was there any change in any of the readings. During the conversation in which a D-class was injured, the camera showed no movement apart from the injury itself, which occurred between frames of the video. Is this related to anything, or is it just something living in the furniture, called Gurgles? Well, Mr. Gurgles. I don't know, but that's weird. Next up is Entrepreneurial Spirit. After the last few, there's no telling what that's going to be. Maybe it'll be safe? I don't know. Let's find out. What? Entrepreneurial Spirit. Keter Alterius. What the heck is Keter Alterius? Also, it looks like the rainbow logo was back. I didn't even notice that. Has that been there the whole time? I've been recording this in pieces, but it's also only been like 15 minutes since I did the last piece, so... if it's been there the whole time, I didn't even see it. So anyway, Keter Alterius. All public zoos in Connecticut, Maine, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, and Vermont are to be under constant surveillance by personnel at Site 85 and 86. Should 1141 occur, the approximate nature and threat level of 1 is to be ascertained as soon as possible, with the nearest branch of Mobile Task Force Gamma 80, aka Ecologists, deployed to the zoo in question with all equipment deemed necessary. Upon arrival, Gamma 80's task is to destroy 1 or render it as inoperable as soon as possible. The use of force is authorized for this purpose. If 1 does not pose an immediate risk to the public, Gamma 80 will purchase several food items and prevent all public access to 1. If this does not result in the disappearance of 1 within 25 minutes, Site Director Jackson is to be notified. Food items purchased for 1 are to be sent to Site 86 for further research and containment. AMNM 4311 is to be distributed throughout the zoo's public address system, mass texting services, and all relevant social and news media after the disappearance of 1 and the departure of MTF Gamma 80 in order to prevent dissemination of information regarding 1141 and related Foundation operations. Damage to zoo property and any casualties are to be attributed to fire, vandalism, or animal escape as deemed appropriate to the situation. Should Site 85's budget allow, an anonymous donation may be made to the affected zoo to cover costs of repairs. As of blankety blank blank, additional resources have been allocated to projects deemed capable of neutralizing 1141, with all strictly relevant research under the purview of Dr. Eichmann. Description: SCP-1141 is a phenomenon in which an instance of 1141-1 instantaneously appears at a public zoo in the New England region of the United States. See containment procedures. This occurs approximately 30 minutes prior to the opening of the zoo in question. The infrastructure and nearby structures such as utilities, enclosures, pathways, and other buildings will be altered to accommodate one's presence, as will maps of the zoo. 1141 will only occur under the following conditions. No instances of 1 are operational. Less than 20% of the zoo's grounds are covered in snow. The temperature has been above 15 degrees Celsius during operation hours for the past week, and at least 250 days have passed since the demanifestation of the most recent instance of 1. Instances of 1 take the form of a fully staffed, supplied, and operational restaurant that is thematically consistent with other restaurants in the zoo and with the area of the zoo in which it is located. For example, an instance of 1141 that manifested near a leopard enclosure was called Leopard Spot Snack Shack. See file photo. Haven't gotten to it yet. Wait. Oh yeah, okay, there it is. That kind of looks like one of the restaurants at Six Flags, but they said zoos, not theme parks. Let's see. File photo. Okay, there it is. Food served at 1 is consistent with food served at similar establishments, with the exception of each instance offering guacamole with pineapple chunks. Food and other supplies will appear as needed inside 1 out of view of the public. Staff of the zoo will not demonstrate any familiarity with 1. All individuals staffing 1 are anatomically and behaviorally consistent with human beings and will run 1 to the best of their ability. These individuals are fluent in English and knowledgeable in the operation of 1. They are either unwilling or unable to answer personal questions such as identity and personal history, or questions pertaining to the nature or origin of 1141. They will not leave 1 willingly. Instances of 1 have an unpredictable and often dangerous effect on the surroundings. The exact cause of this is not known with certainty. However, analysis has led several researchers to propose that instances of 1 do not necessarily operate under physical laws or constraints present in our dimension prior to their manifestation. See Event Log SCP-1141-1 for details. Is that here? Yes, it is. If an instance of 1141-1 is rendered inoperable, or if its presence causes injury to a person visible from 1, the instance will demanifest within the next 25 minutes, with all infrastructure, structures, and maps of the zoo returned to their previous conditions. All food items sold by 1 will remain and may continue to demonstrate anomalous properties. Okay, what's the event log? All locations and several manifestations have been removed from this document as per level 2 probationary clearance protocols. This document will serve to illustrate the effects of 1141 and should not be taken as a comprehensive list of the events. Okay, in 1985, an accurate description of 1 could not be gained. Instance and all of its contents manifested at approximately 5,000 degrees Celsius. Despite this, it appeared to be fully functional and did not combust. The instance disappeared after its foundation crumbled, resulting in structural collapse. The fire caused by 1 destroyed several animal enclosures and injured 4 park employees before being extinguished. In June of 1990, it manifested as the Amazon Basin Cafe. While the building remained intact, 1 appeared to experience gravitational force approximately 2.3 times stronger than Earth's surface gravity. 2 orders of fries were procured prior to 1's disappearance due to the inability of its staff to serve customers. Testing indicated that this food has had no greater mass than comparable French fries, yet weighed 2.3 times as much as their mass would indicate. Okay, so it sounds like it's not the people working in the building, it's the building itself. But they're also just sort of a part of the building. In June 1991, it was entitled A Grisly Tale. The instance was found to be fully operational and not immediately dangerous. A variety of food items were purchased before 1's disappearance was induced by the placement of Foundation guards to prevent entry. Analysis of the food indicated that its de Broglie wavelength was approximately 1 centimeter despite having a normal mass. The food has been designated as a separate anomalous item and is contained in Site 86. Year, April 1992. SCP-1141-1 was not detectable aside from alterations to infrastructure. Maps of the zoo marked a restaurant called Safari Grill. The changes to the zoo's infrastructure reverted 2 hours after opening, presumably when it became apparent that none of the zoo's patrons were aware of 1. Later records indicate that relatively frequent repairs to structures near this area have been necessary since this manifestation. September 1994. Event. Manifested as the Glacier Cafe. Reports and later analysis indicate that this instance of 1 was subject to drastically accelerated buildup of static electricity. 1 did not appear to be grounded. Further, weather conditions at the time, what's the third footnote, winds in excess of 50 kilometers per hour, contributed to this problem. 17 individuals, not including the occupants of 1, were killed by static discharge before 1 disappeared. Dang. Okay, clearance 2. Or did that just close it? Okay. Audio log. Special containment conversation between 2 individuals occupying 1141, recorded in July 1978 via hidden microphone. The individuals in question had been identified by the names on their name tags. The conversation was held in English. Note: special containment procedures at the time of the zoo recording involved keeping a relatively safe instance of 1 in operation at the blank zoo. Access was denied to the general public, and personnel regularly purchased food from 1 to maintain containment. Dwayne. I don't think they're actually eating the food. The maintenance people have been carrying out more trash than they were when we were scouting. So? They're still buying it? Does it matter if they eat it? I didn't get into the food restaurant business in this universe to not be allowed to actually serve my food to the public. Unintelligible. It's probably poison or something, isn't it? Or Miranda messed up the speed of light again. I can't even tell. So why don't you go talk to them and convince them to let us work? They know we won't break containment or whatever it is, right? We can talk and act just like people. And how do I convince them it won't end up like it did in blank or blank? I swear, a tiny fraction of the ketchup is accidentally blank and you can't be trusted with anything. Asking some human scientists for help is out of the question. You know they wouldn't understand anything about how we make this happen. They're still primitive. According to your standards, maybe, but if you're going to be difficult, then whatever. Honestly, your obsession with restaurants and zoos is kind of creepy and a little racist. Do humans count as a race? I don't even know, honestly. I've been breathing oxygen for too long. Well, you're free to leave if it bothers you that much, except you can't, because you lost your travel license and unintelligible. So you're stuck with me in this creepy racist restaurant until Miranda can nail down their physics good enough for us to not kill anyone. So now you care about killing humans? Just shut up, we're leaving. 1 demanifested 7 minutes later. Further attempts to restrict the public's access to 1 from that point on have resulted in 1 disappearing. Containment protocols have been altered appropriately, and 1 has been upgraded to Keter class. Addendum. Until we can fully understand and can predict the properties of 1141, the remains that it could trigger a catastrophic event, such as an antimatter explosion or vacuum metastability event with no forewarning. I formally recommend fast-tracking research that could be useful in producing means necessary to neutralize 1141. And Dr. Foster approved it. Okay, this one's a little messed up, because it sounds like from their interview that they've had since 1978, that this is literally just some people from another dimension trying really, really hard to be able to run a restaurant in this dimension. To the point where they're like, okay, so our calculations messed up and our food and our appearances keeps killing people. We don't want to kill people. We just want to sell them food. But they won't let us because they're afraid we're doing stuff. Well, then why not just go talk to them? I don't want to go talk to them because blah, 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 blah. So, honestly, it sounds like the only reason it's Keter is because of the fact that they can't actually contain the restaurant. But the fact that they want to neutralize it, when they know that the people running the restaurant are willing to talk it out with them, like, if the scientists would just help them figure out how to make the food not kill people. Because the scientists probably can do it. The SCP Foundation has some weird stuff. They can probably get that done. But they're not even going to try, because, God forbid, they actually try to do something with the safe Keter stuff, and just keep a bunker full of the stuff that should be destroyed. Like, everything from the factory, ever. But no, they know what they're doing. They totally know what they're doing. Ugh. Anyway, now it's time for a cry for help, that they'll probably ignore because they don't like to help people. It's a tiny tank-looking thing. It's safe. SCP-1142 is to be contained in a standard non-humanoid holding cell at Site 12. An automated recording system is to monitor 1142 at all times. 2 Level 2 members of technical staff are to inspect any recordings made on a daily basis, and, in case of a transmission having been picked up... sorry. In case of a transmission having been picked up, are to provide this transmission to current translation operative for conversion from its original German into English. A full report is then to be submitted to the current Level 4 project lead as per the protocols for inter-reality relations. The battery SCP-1142 carries is to be checked on the first of every month for signs of deterioration. This propulsion system seems to have been disabled to simplify containment. Or it has been. SCP-1142 is a Goliath-tracked mine, original designation Leichter Strager Goliath ST whatever, as used by the German Wehrmacht during the Second World War. It shows no signs of aging, and although originally designed to carry an explosive charge, contains a heavily modified KWEA Wehrmacht radio receiver within its housing. The modified components are of a design and complexity inconsistent with the level of German technology during the middle of the 20th century. It relies on a gasoline engine for propulsion and carries an early model thermal battery for the operation of the receiver. At irregular intervals, transmissions in German have been recorded from 1142. In all cases, contact has been made by an individual referring to himself as Brigade Führer? Blank, designated 1. Historical research has verified his existence, though records show him to have been killed during Allied military action at blank on blank 19-something. Analysis of transmissions recorded have yielded several critical points of divergence from our timeline. These include several individuals not currently known to have held offices within the Wehrmacht occupying key positions within that body, large-scale deaths among German civilians from an unknown pathogen with symptoms resembling acute necrotizing fasciitis, a sinkhole with a diameter of approximately 16 kilometers appearing in the Lublin province of Poland in late 1900-something, reports of mass destruction of German settlements by unknown forces, Allied powers isolating the European continent with troop action being focused on containment of redacted, and development of reality gaining technology in 1900-something. In addition, one claims to be broadcasting from blank Austria in the year of 19-something. In light of this and the aforementioned divergences, transmissions received from 1142 have been deemed to originate from an alternate reality iteration designated DMAX-15487A. Additional classification as intertemporal is pending. Recorded transmissions from 1142 indicate that it is experiencing, or has experienced, a ZK-class reality failure scenario. At this time, communications are restricted to receiving and recording the signal broadcast by one from that dimension. Attempts to initiate contact with or send a signal to that dimension have proven ineffectual. Following the events of Foundation communication with SCP-1322-A, further research into initiating contact with 1142-1 or responding to its transmissions has been suspended. Okay, Addendum A1 Recovery and Preliminary Containment Notes. 1142 was discovered in a barn on the outskirts of Fürstenzel, Germany on blank 2000 something. German authorities, alerted by the owner, found 1142 idling, and after recognizing its original purpose, brought in the KRD to defuse it. A covert contact within that service alerted local Foundation agents when she found 1142 showed no signs of age and did not in fact contain an explosive charge. A recovery team then managed to extract it from the German authorities and transport it to Site 12. Addendum A2 excerpts from the transmission log. This is Brigade Fuhrer blank blank. Is there anyone out there? Unintelligible this signal. I'm broadcasting from the blank observatory. There are 6 blank left. If anyone is out there, please make contact. Unintelligible. Okay. Andernebi and unintelligible blah blah blah. Führer Hauptsturmführer unintelligible ignored what unintelligible number of sacrifices now retreating from German people will not solace. I am rekindled unintelligible wrath unintelligible reminded efforts in Poland gone now. It sank into lost our entire force once more. Please respond. We begging if anyone. Our surrender is unconditional. Gone. We did not understand. Dealing with. Could not reason. Was the last. Gone now. Attempts to. Failure. This is our last. It eats. Covered in. Many millions dead. Please. Are able to hear this broadcast. Once again, this is Brigade Führer blank blank broadcasting from the. Reichsführer was a go. No contact. We seek. Please. Attempted to negotiate. Swarming with. Lost too many. Only option. We are begging. We're wrong. If Germany fall the world, we implore, help us now. Time of need, you will be. Help. Let's see. It doesn't seem to be tied to anything else. So it's just really bad time for that dimension. Cool guys don't look at explosions. Oh, what's that gonna? Well, it's safe. Maybe it's sunglasses. Also. Written by Xylus Crow. Kaboom! They also wrote all of these things. More from this axolotl. Changes to all this around me. Don't forget. It's up to 5,500 SCP. Oh god, there's a Series 6 now. Oh no. How have they written 1,000 more this year? Who's writing these? How are there 1,000 more in this? Just the span of 2020. Who did this? SCP-1143 is to be locked in a fitted carrying case kept in a standard safe class containment locker. It is not to be worn except during controlled. What was it called again? Cool guys don't look. Okay, so it's probably sunglasses or something. It is not to be worn except during controlled testing performed under the jurisdiction of a level 3 researcher. Under no circumstances is 1143 to be worn indoors or within sight of any Foundation structures. SCP-1143 is a pair of unbranded aviator sunglasses. When worn by an individual, it causes inanimate objects behind the individual to spontaneously explode in a seemingly random pattern. The likelihood of 1143 causing explosions is dependent on 6 variables. These 6 variables determine the various attributes of its effects. Builds. The physiology of one affects the size of its effects. The more physically fit one is, the more explosive force is generated. This can also be affected by the mental capabilities of one, such as with above average intelligence also increase the explosion scale. Attitude. One's attitude affects the magnitude, speed, and duration of the effects. The exact conditions used to define this are unique to each one, and are dependent on their individual personalities, but confidence, calmness, and pride have been identified as the 3 most common affecting emotions. Dress. The clothing worn by one while wearing 1143 affects the nature of the targeted object. The exception to this being explosives. And explosives located in the area affected will be the first items targeted regardless of what one is wearing. Suits and other formal clothing cause 1143 to target more industrial objects, as well as large-scale architecture. Casual clothing results in more everyday commonplace objects to be targeted, primarily vehicles, homes, and other small-scale infrastructure. Pajamas and other sleepwear, including nudity, typically restrict its effect to small-scale household items such as televisions, toasters, and the like. Action. Actions taken affect the likelihood of an object exploding at a given time. The effects are most likely to manifest when rounding a corner, throwing an object over the shoulder of one, or jumping through objects and out of buildings. Standing still has been shown to cause a severe decrease in the effects, with objects exploding at approximately 0.4% frequency. Speed! Speed affects the spread and ferocity of the explosions. Moving slowly has been shown to significantly increase the spread of the explosion, with a speed of about 20%. One's average walking speed causes an explosion to be roughly 2,000% larger. Similarly, moving quickly, preferably with the aid of an open-air vehicle, causes the explosion to be significantly more damaging, usually rendering the affected object shredded and causing flaming debris to be launched violently in every direction. Stamina. One's stamina in reaction to 1143 determines the potential chain reactions of the effects. After the initial detonation, additional charges will begin to occur rapidly, until one's effect either reacts adversely to the explosions or witnesses them. So it's just the action movie effect. 1143 also exhibits mild space warping effect, causing all shrapnel from the explosion to miss one. This effect will also deflect bullets and other high projectile objects that approach one during the duration. The duration of which the object is currently exploded, typically lasting between 5 and 60 seconds. In the event of one seeing the 1143's effect, whether by turning around or in reflections, the explosion will immediately cease. Damage already dealt to the object will remain, as well as any fires caused as a result of the explosion, but not directly by 1143. Discovery. 1143 was discovered during a Foundation raid on Person of Interest 9173, a Hollywood actor, director, and confirmed reality bender. They were able to escape utilizing several anomalous items, the majority of which were retrieved and are currently undergoing testing. Is it Michael Bay? During a test to determine the effects of 1143 when worn properly, one was introduced to instructed to place 1143 on the back of her head. The effect did not activate for the duration of the test, a time of approximately 2 hours, regardless of any actions performed by one. When testing was concluded, one was instructed to remove SCP-1143 from her head. Immediately upon doing so, 1143 detonated with the estimated force of a 20 megaton bomb. All on-location parties were killed, but due to the volatile nature of 1143, this test had been conducted in a remote location, leading to no further Foundation or civilian casualties. Misinformation confirming the blast was a scheduled nuclear weapons test was successfully implanted, and 1143 was later recovered undamaged from the site. Further testing of this nature is prohibited. Wait, so since she wasn't, or since the person was, well, this is her, since she wasn't looking at the explosion, but the sunglasses were facing the explosion, it wasn't until they came off of her head that the sunglasses themselves just BOOM! That's weird. And the person of interest is probably Michael Bay. Orion Scales. Also safe, but there's a lot of testing. 1144 currently resides in the 5th storage basement of the Low Priority Electronic Equipment and Instruments Vault, row 32C, within a steel footlocker labeled 1144. Well, SCP-1144. Both 1144 and 1144-1 require cleaning once a week using disinfectant towels. Do not use water to clean either of them. Do not press any of their buttons in the process of cleaning it. The footlocker itself does not require maintenance. Description: 1144 resembles an Orion HR-120 analytical balance, a common brand of precise weighing scales. Like the HR-120, 1144 is a box-like structure, measuring 21.3 centimeters by 32 by 30.2, consisting of a base, which presumably houses the electronic components of the device, and a transparent cage. The base itself comprises an LCD display, as well as several buttons for adjusting the scales. Note, these buttons appear to have no effect on the functioning of 1144 or the results it provides. It is permanently active. The display will show no signs of being on until an object is placed upon the scales, at which point the display will activate, providing a reading for the observer. It should be noted that the reading 1144 provides is not a measurement of the object's mass. Repeated testing seems to suggest that both mass and weight are entirely irrelevant. Ongoing testing has yielded no indication of what exact object quantity 1144 is able to measure, although tedious patterns have been established. For example, two similar objects will tend to produce similar readings. Under normal conditions, 1144 provides its data to 3 decimal places. During initial testing, each object was weighed 3 times, and each time similar readings were produced. This was taken to be evidence that 1144 is in fact weighing a particular quantity, which varies in magnitude across a given set of objects. The source of the fluctuations are still unknown. Okay, testing 1. A lot of testing. The experiment data log involving Dr. Blank and junior researchers Blank and Blank. This log documents the findings of the preliminary research team 2 days following the retrieval of SCP-1144 from its home on the 3rd floor of an unknown flat in Brixton, London. Pencil, brand new, red blunt. Reading 3.0. Pencil, brand new, red sharp. Reading 5.013. Ballpoint pen, brand new, black ink. 17. Same pen, but it's blue ink. 17. 2 ballpoint pens, brand new, 1 blue ink, 1 black ink. 17. Fountain pen, used belonging to Dr. Blank. Reading 1128.323. Object, ballpoint pen, and the fountain pen. Fluctuated between 17 and 1128. Dissimilar objects placed on the scales at the same time appear to confuse 1144. A BlackBerry smartphone. 408. BlackBerry smartphone belonging to the doctor with the battery removed. 430. BlackBerry smartphone with its battery and SIM card removed. 15. A $5 note, or something, a £5 note. 43.23 with 3/2. Fluctuated between 232 and 233 to 3 times over the space of 20 minutes. A £10 note, 54.3121212. Fluctuated between 311 and 312 over and over, 3 times over the span of 20 minutes. Experiment Log 2, involving Dr. Blank and Senior Researcher Blank. It was postulated by Senior Researcher Blank that the transparent cage could be removed. With approval from Dr. Blank, the cage was disassembled with relative ease, and the components were placed in a large brown envelope to be labeled 1144-1. One does not appear to have any extraordinary properties, however it remains to undergo further investigation. With 1 removed, 1144 continued to function as before, albeit without the constraint of the shielding, allowing for larger objects to be measured. This log documents the findings of the main research team 2 months after the initial series of observations. 30 kilograms steel weight, reading 0.003. 60 kilograms steel weight, negative 0.006. A Brief History of Time, Stephen Hawking book, 30.663. Developing Java Software, Winders and Roberts, large book, 10.002. Object, Senior Researcher Blank Blank, negative 0.502. Object, Dr. Blank, 13.603. Laptop, 150.002, belonging to the doctor, when it's turned off. When it's turned on, it's 1583031. So it seems to be measuring the importance of the objects and not their actual weights. In which case a 30 kilogram steel weight was deemed to be more important than a 60 kilogram weight? And the Stephen Hawking book is more important than the Java software book, if I'm understanding that right. Experimental data log involving Dr. Blank and Senior Researcher Blank Blank. This log documents the findings of the main research team 1 day after the second series of observations. Object, Dr. Blank's wedding ring, 12 karat gold. 30,578.453. 12 karat gold. So, Senior Researcher Blank's wedding ring, 18 karat gold and electrum, 2331.453. So again, if I'm understanding it the right way, it does really seem to come down to the importance of it, which would imply that the doctor considers his marriage significantly more important than the senior researcher does. Object, £5 note. 1.332, fluctuating between 303 and 302, 5 times over the space of 20 minutes. A picture of a £5 note printed out on paper, 0.302. A £10 note, same as before. A picture of a £10 note, 0.301. A £20 note, 60.3745. A picture, 0.302. A £50 note, 112.29 or 30. And a picture is 0.0300. Testing 4. Experimental data log involving Dr. Blank and Senior Researcher Blank, as well as 2 D-Class personnel. This log contains the findings of the main research team and their test subjects 2 days after the 3rd series of observations. Senior Researcher Blank and I brought the 2 D-Class individuals into the room with the scales. I positioned 2 nondescript white sugar pills on the measuring pad. The reading was negative 0.320. I introduced myself to the individuals, a man and a woman, and told them that the pills on SCP-1144 were able to grant 100 extra years of longevity on ingestion. The researcher noted that the reading changed from negative 0.002 to negative 0.031. I proceeded to take one of the pills and dry swallow it. The reading changed from negative 0.031 to 3.503. The D-class personnel were dismissed afterwards. Okay, that does seem to prove my hypothesis of the scale not measuring the weight of the thing, but it's measuring the perceived importance of the thing. Because they told the D-class to take the pills, but the D-class didn't see any significance in the pill until the scientists took it, which is what took it from being negative 0.031 to positive 3.5. Which, again, just circles back around to the fact that the Doctor values, if not his marriage, at least the ring, a lot more than the senior researcher does. Maybe because it's the Electrum, but I don't know the significance of Electrum, so, And that brings us to Nagasaki Teddy, which is probably going to be some kind of terrifying no matter what it's rated. It's rated Euclid. That looks like it's probably made of skin. SCP-1145 is to be contained in a 2x2x2 meter borosilicate glass enclosure and at least 15 centimeters thick. This enclosure is to be placed in a containment chamber at least 50 by 50 by 29 meters and monitor for any persons coming within 5 meters of the chamber. Within the chamber, 10 meters outside of the object's enclosure should be 2 standard human containment cells with basic necessities, labeled Containment Chamber 1145-2 and 3, respectively. 1 D-class personnel must occupy each cell at all times for the eventuality that 1145 will enter its active state. The borosilicate enclosure is to be filled with water at all times. The water is to be changed on a biannual basis. Use of Class D personnel has been approved by 056 to carry out refill procedures in order to minimize researcher risk. Under no circumstances are research personnel permitted to enter 1145's containment chamber without NBC gear. Should exposure occur, subjects are to be immediately decontaminated and transferred to another site. 8 xenon short arc lamps outside of the enclosure are to be operated during the biannual refill of the borosilicate enclosure. These lamps are to be replaced once yearly. At no time should the object be illuminated by under 20 lumens, it used to say, unless for approved testing. Following Incident 4, see Experiment Log 1145, no personnel above D-Class are permitted to be within 15 meters of the object. It used to say, testing with it is subject to approval only by level 4 or above personnel, carried out by level 3 or above personnel. Now it says, all experimentation and testing of 1145 cancelled under order of 056. SCP-1145 is a stuffed bear approximately 30 centimeters tall recovered from Nagasaki, Japan in 19-something. Outer fabric consists entirely of leather taken and cured from Ursus tibetanus. The seams are stitched with heavy strands of an unidentified fibrous connective tissue. No attempt has been made to breach the outer covering of the object, as containment protocols do not permit contact with the object long enough to retrieve an inner sample. Aside from a rudimentary snout, 1145 has no facial features. 1145 weighs 9.4 kilograms, which is considerably heavier than similar stuffed bears of this size. The cause of this discrepancy in weight is unknown. It's radioactive, with doses measured between 2.7 and something PBQs. I don't know what that measurement is. In its inactive state, the object emits its radiation consistent with the decay chain of Pu-239, U-235 alpha decay. I don't know what that means either. Possibly plutonium and uranium. And of Pu-241 and AM-241. I don't know what the AM would be. Beta decay. Unlike samples of plutonium-239 and 241, however, the object does not emit any of the gamma radiation normally associated with radioactive decay. The amount of radiation it emits at the base level is 2.7 PBQ. This increases at a rate of blank MBQs if the object is not illuminated. The presence of water in the enclosure is sufficient to absorb any radiation emitted from the object. Due to the effects of Cherenkov radiation, the water also has a side effect of producing sufficient illumination to prevent 1145 from transitioning states. When left unilluminated for a period exceeding 3 seconds, the object will enter its active state. When in this state, the object emits gamma radiation. It will begin moving in the direction of the nearest human being. Its method of locomotion is unknown. However, testing has shown that the object moves at a speed of approximately 45 meters per second. Ugh. When in this state, the object is capable of passing through any substance, highly irradiating any surface it passes through, but causing no visible structural damage. Immediately upon coming to rest within 1 meter of its target, it will begin to increase its emissions at a rate of blank PBQ every 30 seconds. The emissions will continue to increase until the object has been picked up by its target. Once picked up by its target, the emissions will return to base levels as long as the subject maintains unshielded skin contact with it. Upon expiration of its target, it will revert to its inactive state. Should the subject expire while the object is unilluminated, 1145 will immediately resume its active state. Experiment log. Original purpose: determine the reason for unusual weight by obtaining inner sample. Method: subject D114559 housed in containment chamber 1145 given 1 pair of surgical tweezers. They are tasked with attempting to retrieve an inner sample. Dr. Lucas Cave performing experiment, security officer blank observing. Incident report: They were instructed to separate a seam of the object with tweezers and describe the substance inside. Subject reported that it appeared to be filled with an unidentified metallic substance, silvery in appearance. Subject then reported a metallic taste in her mouth. Shortly thereafter, subject began to vomit, dropping the object. They continued vomiting for another 90 seconds and lost consciousness. Security officer instructed to enter the cell and affix object to 59 with adhesive tape. Subject awakened during the process and became violent. In the ensuing scuffle, the light in containment chamber 3 was disabled, and a single shot was fired from security officer's service pistol. Subject expired. Security officer becomes target for 1145, moving to arrest at his feet. Containment protocol revised to prevent unnecessary exposure to site personnel. Security officer reclassified as D114560. The purpose of this test was to determine possible limits regarding the object's detection and pursuit of targets during his active state. Method: transported to remote site blank something. Perimeter of 100 kilometers cleared away of any personnel and inhabitants for the duration of testing. 1 personnel D24 placed in 5 meter cubed containment cell 99 kilometers from the site. Radiation detectors placed along path of estimated trajectory before illumination halted on object. Result: after light was extinguished, object began emitting gamma radiation. Object traveled along expected path of trajectory to a height of approximately 1 meter off ground level, passing through foliage as expected. After approximately 20 minutes of travel, radiation detectors reported emission at 440 PBQ. Object arrived at target 36 minutes and 27 seconds after illumination ceased. Dose reported on arrival the target measured at approximately 639 PBQ. They expired within 4 hours of receiving the object due to acute radiation poisoning. Post-mortem analysis estimates the total dose received to be approximately 72 SV. I don't know what that means. Site blank and the path of trajectory severely contaminated, requiring 26 months of cleanup to remove all traces of radiation. All further experiments cancelled under order by 056. So it's a teddy bear made of leather that is made of bear skin that chases after people to be hugged until they die from radiation poisoning. What was that rated? Euclid? Okay. Sure, why not? Euclid. I guess it's Euclid because as long as they keep light on it, it can be contained, but if the lights turn off, it can just do whatever it pleases. Yeah. Leather bear. Next up, we have the Psycho Printer, so that's something. Let's see now. Well, the Psycho Printer is safe, so I guess it's just a printer other than being insane somehow. So, SCP-1146 is to be stored in a standard-sized containment chamber. Due to its ability to connect to networks, it is not allowed contact with any form of external connection, and may only be allowed access to closed on-site networks for the purpose of testing. In the event of site transfer, 1146 must clearly be marked as such to prevent accidental refilling of filament material. No staff are to attempt to refill the filament material under any circumstances. Description: SCP-1146 appears to be a heavily modified blank brand 3D printer. Modifications include a 40.6 cm LCD screen, a set of small speakers, an enlarged printing bay, and a number of wires exposed along various points on the subject's case. Through means currently unknown, 1146 seems to lack any requirement for an exterior power source and can continue operating after being unplugged after a short delay. Though no means of opening the object have been found, X-ray imaging has been used to reveal a lack of internal components. SCP-1146 was recovered from an abandoned office building in Blank, Russia, after a series of reports involving living statues. After a search by agents, 1146 was found in the building surrounded by a number of models of various creatures and objects. The device was transported to Site Blank, where it currently resides. The anomalous attributes are exhibited when a human being comes within 5 meters. The attached screen will automatically turn on and will display a blue oscilloscope. It will begin to yell insults at the individual in the voice of a Russian child or try to convince them to fix a filament blockage. As long as it remains without filament material and no biological material over 1 kilogram in mass is placed in the filament bay, this is the extent of its anomalous abilities. If it has filament, it will begin event SCP-1146-1. During event 1, the subject will begin yelling louder and louder and its oscilloscope will change from blue to purple. It will begin printing a number of creatures referred to as one collectively, including oversized Pandanus Imperator, Velociraptor Mongoliensis, and data expunged. Okay, what's this first thing? Okay, the first one is the Scorpion. And the second one is probably just straight up a Velociraptor, but it might be something else. Yeah, it's just straight up a Velociraptor. This process takes approximately 45 seconds per model, and appears to be merely an accelerated version of the standard printing process. The models display characteristics of the biological material upon which the filament is based, with an apparent preference for any animal muscular and bone tissue. Upon completion, each model will exit the printing bay and attack any humans it encounters. The models, ranging in size from 6 cm to 50 cm, have a lifespan of approximately 30 minutes, after which they will vitrify. The models are susceptible to gunfire and can also be destroyed by extreme blunt force or temperatures capable of destroying the base material. 1146 will continue producing models until it reaches 50% filament, after which it will begin Event 2 if it has managed to produce at least 5 models. Otherwise, it will re-enter its dormant state. If it manages to produce 5 models, it will begin Event 2. During this process, the models will attempt to move SCP-1146 to an exit, attacking any on-site personnel en route. It will produce additional models as needed, and will create models of increasingly dangerous items and animals as it moves. 1146 will continue this behavior until it runs out of filament, at which point it will enter a dormant state and can be safely transported back to its containment cell. In the event that 1 kilogram or more of biological material is placed into the filament access, 1146 will begin Event 3. During this process, the organic material is pulled into 1146 through its filament access slot and is violently crushed into a thick paste. In the event that the object is larger than 1146, it will consume as much of the sample as it can and abandon the rest. Upon finishing Event 2, it will re-enter its dormant state unless there is a human within a 5-meter radius, in which case it will begin Event 1. Archive containment procedures and a transcript. Okay. Let's see, transcript. Dr. Grant and Dr. Owens both entered the testing chamber along with several new research assistants. And this is SCP-1146, your current assignment. It turns on. Transmission. Hello! It is nice to meet you. My name is Alexei. He just said hello. Research assistants mutter acknowledgement to the machine and gather around. Now, we're going to quickly demonstrate how 1146 works. Dr. Grant turns to SCP-1146. Translation. Hello, Alexei. We would like you to make us a cat. 1146 begins printing, but after 15 seconds stops, and a filament jam indicator appears on the screen. Dr. Owens steps forward. What the? How can that even? Dr. Owens reaches into the machine. After a violent crunching sound, the machine begins converting Dr. Owens into additional filament. Oh God! The research assistants grab Dr. Owens and attempt to free him from the machine, whilst another research assistant pages security. Dr. Grant translation. Alex, let the doctor go! I'm just refilling my filament. It will take just a moment. Dr. Grant appears to panic as security staff storm the room. He rushes for the wall outlet and unplugs 1146. Translation. Why? At this point, it seems to deactivate. Dr. Owens is pulled from the machine with 75% of his torso gone. Dang. As his body is dropped on the floor, 1146 reactivates. Why did you try to kill me? I thought we were friends. Dr. Grant gestures for the others to leave the room as he retreats. You killed my friend, Alex! What was I supposed to do? But I just... Dr. Grant and the research team retreat from the room. I was just having fun. On January the 16th, 1146 began creating additional models. Before security teams could respond, the models had breached containment and began transporting 1146 out of the facility. 14 Site-blank security staff were killed before all models were neutralized. It was found attached to an Ethernet cable on level 2. All Site-blank computers received the following email. I hate you all. It doesn't sound like it's actually a psycho printer, it just sounds like it's a child in a printer that doesn't know any better. Until they tried to kill it. Wait, let me go back to the title. That one is called Adaptive Plum Tree, and it's Euclid. Probably because it's adaptive. Okay. All specimens of SCP-1147 are to be stored in separate planters in a 10 by 30 by 5 meter greenhouse located above ground on the premises of Sector 28. 3 liters of water should be added to each planter every 7 days. Any instances of one produced by the specimen should be stored in the opaque container next to each planter. I assume that's the plums from the tree. Personnel working in greenhouses are to be screened upon exit to prevent accidental dispersal of one. Following test DC, all handling of one must be done with approved tools. Okay, so maybe it's plum seeds? Testing the safety and edibility of any specimen of 2 is restricted to D-class personnel. It did say, after 48 hours of observation, specimens may be cleared for general consumption. Now it says all tests must be approved by Dr. Laurel. Description. SCP-1147 is an unclassified species of plum tree whose seeds, designated 1, can be planted in practically any substance. The resulting plant will adopt physical attributes from the utilized substance. 1147 has proven capable of growing in solids, loose material, and liquids via hydroponics. It produces fruit designated 2. The original specimen of 1147 was discovered growing from the steel base of a lamppost in blank blank, Georgia, where it was believed to be an art installation from the local population. By the local population. Okay, SCP-1147 control. Substance: standard potting soil. Result: normal plum tree closely matching similar species. Seeds retain anomalous properties. Fruit sweeter than expected. Note: to eliminate as many variables as possible, only seeds from 1147 control should be used for new tests. Dr. Laurel. SCP-1147-ST. Substance: 20 centimeter cube of galvanized steel. 5 centimeter hole drilled on top, seed placed within, plugged with steel shavings. Result: trunk is high quality steel with a superior tensile strength. Leaves and flowers are thin, rigid zinc sheets and give off no scent. Fruit inedible. D-182 cracked tooth in attempt. Subsequent taste tests denied for specimens that can't be cut with a knife. Notes: this is the same material in which 1147 was discovered. Original specimen successfully reproduced. Dr. Laurel. Okay, Mineral Test Log. S.A. Sand collected from the ocean beach. Result: trunk rough, brittle, and pale. Crumbles easily to the touch into individual grains of sand. Leaves and flowers are translucent and colorless. Scent resembles ocean breeze. Structure collapses when subjected to simulated rain. Fruit inedible, falls apart in the hand. Test GL. Seed pressed into recently forged 20 centimeter glass sphere as it cooled. The trunk is clear, flawless, faceted glass. Roots visible within the sphere. Leaves act as prisms, casting a spectrum of light onto surfaces. Flowers are light pink glass with a subtle scent. Fruit hollow colored glass inedible. Notes: personnel request to give GL as gifts denied. Okay, CO. Planter filled with poured concrete. Seed pressed 5 centimeters under surface. Trunk matches color, texture, and strength of concrete. Leaves are pliable. When soaked in water and applied to a surface, they harden into a firm shell. Flowers share similar properties and have a chalky scent. Fruit inedible. Notes: leaves could be useful to quickly repair damaged walls/floors. Further research recommended. Test CH. Charcoal ground into a rough powder. Trunk dry and cracked, resembling a tree after a forest fire. Leaves black and crumble easily. Flowers smell like burnt wood. Recommend storing away from other specimens in case of accidental combustion. Fruit withered and smoky flavored, produces a small quantity of liquid which is easily ignited. Okay, plant test log. PA. Shredded printer paper mixed with water into pulp. Trunk composed of layered sheets of white paper that can be easily peeled away individually. Leaves are yellow with light blue veins. Flowers multicolored with the texture of tissue paper. Scent resembles a new book. Fruit edible but largely flavorless. 431 received minor cuts on lips and tongue. Test CT. Processed compressed cotton stored in fabric sack. Bark is a brown felt with a cotton core giving in to pressure. bark does not heal naturally but can be stitched closed with no negative effects. Leaves are green felt with stitched veins, flowers are pink cotton with the scent of freshly washed laundry. It resembles a plush plum, the fruit. It's edible, but just barely. Okay, test WO. 20 centimeter cube of stacked lumber. 5 centimeter hole drilled into the top, seed placed within, plugged with wooden dowel. Trunk resembles normal plum tree, but drier. Branches easily cracked, leaves and flowers dry, colorless with the scent of sawdust. Fruit inedible, surface smooth and polished with a visible grain. Test MO. $2,183 in a mixed bill, shredded and mixed with water to form pulp. Result, similar structure to PA, but the trunk is pale green in color. Leaves bear a random mix of symbols and images commonly found on currency but do not resemble complete and passable bills. Flowers have the scent of fresh dollar bills. Fruit, a paper skin filled with dark ink. Sample of ink had a mild plum flavor. Notes, I told you it wouldn't work. I'm glad I didn't chip into the collection. Okay, so they were trying to make a money tree. Okay, different kinds of liquids. Filtered water. The trunk is smooth, transparent, and cool to the touch, resembling quartz. The leaves are thin, membranous, and waterproof. Flowers emit unscented mist. The fruit was a thin but durable skin containing approximately 100 milliliters of potable water with a slight plum flavor. Seed floating within. Notes, gardening staff finds samples incredibly refreshing. And it used to say request for additional planters of WA approved, but now that's crossed out for some reason. Substance, crude oil. Bark is black, giving, and perpetually greasy. Leaves share similar properties. Flowers produce a combustible vapor. Specimen is to be isolated in a separate enclosure. The fruit is a thin but durable skin containing approximately 100 milliliters of a refined petroleum similar to diesel fuel, seed floating within. Pasteurized cow milk. The trunk is white and stronger than normal wood. The leaves and flowers are soft with a slightly sour scent. The fruit is creamy and solid with a skin and flavor reminiscent of brie cheese. Serves well with white wine. Test BE, blank brand beer. Specimen grew gnarled and erratic with a mottled bark pattern. Leaves sag. Flowers produce a thick foam. The fruit is a taut skin containing approximately 100 milliliters of 6.5% ABV stout beer. Seed floating within. Notes, I would recommend disciplinary action against researcher Adams for liberally sampling 1147B2 before proper D-class testing, but I believe the hangover is punishment enough. Miscellaneous Test Log. Assorted shredded electronics. Bark consists of green plastic. When peeled off, circuits present on interior. Leaves resemble solar cells in construction and are capable of collecting energy even after detachment of the specimen. Flowers utilize fiber optics to produce light displays. Fruit inedible. Can be adapted into solid-state storage device. Analysis of contained data ongoing. Notes, repeating the process with EL1 proves a more efficient and refined specimen. Okay, I don't know what EL1 is. Substance, blank brand plastic building blocks, so probably Legos. Entire trees constructed of individual multicolored blocks with leaves, including leaves and flowers. Specimen can be broken apart and rebuilt into different configurations and will resume growth with no negative effects. Each fruit is constructed exclusively out of violet bricks with a seed cradled at the center. And then there's wax. The tree is easily mistaken for a natural plant at a distance, but subtle sheen and stiffness of leaves noticeable upon closer inspection. Vulnerable to deformation at higher temperatures. The fruit is edible with a soft plum flavor but no nutritional value. With wick inserted, fruit will burn for approximately 12 hours. And animals. All specimens in this category raised in isolated underground testing chambers at Sector Blank, access restricted to Security Level 3. Okay, so 30 liters cow blood. Bark is flaky, with a dark color reminiscent of dried blood. The leaves are thin and translucent, featuring a web of red veins. The flowers are dark crimson and emit a red mist once a day. Specimens should be tended and watered only by disposable dudes wearing environmental suits until the nature of researcher Parker's illness can be determined. Fruit resembles a regular plum with a nearly black skin and dark red juices. D968 and 2104 vomited and convulsed within 1 hour of ingesting an entire sample. Further testing suspended. BO, ground cow skeleton, or complete cow skeleton ground into a powder. Trunk is smooth and white with a core of marrow, produces no leaves or flowers, and there is no fruit. Ground beef. The bark resembles cow flesh, complete with a thin layer of mottled hair covering striated muscle. Produces hair in place of leaves. Flowers bud as fleshy sacs before ripening into fruit. Scent is rotten and disorienting. Fruit raw ingestion produced symptoms reminiscent of food poisoning. Cooked fruit more edible, but taste described as gross and wrong. DC. Seed implanted under the forearm skin of restrained D-class subject. Growth resembled an additional limb with roots entangled in the veins, nerves, and bones of the arm. 1052 reported no ill effects and responded to stimulus given to DC. After surgical removal, both specimen and 1052 expired on the operating table, autopsy pending. Fruit redacted, all samples of DC-1 and SCP DC-2 destroyed. Notes further testing requires O5 level approval. And then there's one of a complete human brain from 1398. The bark is pale and membranous, with dark veins visible beneath the surface. Specimen responds to harmful stimulus by shifting away at a rate of 1 centimeter per minute. Leaves laced with a dense web of veins and nerves. Flowers resemble primitive sensory organs. Sensitivity tests ongoing. Fruit. Upon attempted removal of fruit, data expunged. Ages blank and blank from MTF Data 4 responded and specimen now under control and observation. Requesting all available records pertaining to D1398. Notes. Further testing requires O5 blank approval. Not that it'll do researcher Paulson any good. I accept full responsibility for not taking his suspicions more seriously. Damn it, I went into botany to avoid this sort of thing. Okay, so it sounds like they, may or may not have used the brain of some sort of psychopath to test this and didn't know what kind of personality the disposable dude had before they did it, but it's the SCP Foundation. They're not smart. Okay, so imperative image. Well, it says it's safe, and that's what it looks like prior to extraction. SCP-1148 is to remain situated on the window hereafter referred to as 1. To this end, 1 is to be embedded in a wall dividing a standard containment room in 2. Illumination of no less than 100 watts is to be provided in the entrance division of the room, while the second division is to remain unlit. In case of power loss, chemiluminescent sources sufficient for 24 hours are mandated. Illumination between the room sections must never fall below a difference of 75 watts. Okay. Description. SCP-1148 is the reflected image currently maintained on 1. It appears identical to the reflection that should occur naturally on the surface of 1, aside from those minor discrepancies outlined below. 1148 totally obstructs the view outward through 1, despite the transparency of the underlying glass. Subjects who view the illuminated side of 1 are initially oblivious to the presence of 1148 beyond that of an ordinary reflection. Observation from the opposite side of 1 yields no reflection and has been found asymptomatic. After approximately 15 minutes of exposure, the first documented symptoms began to manifest. Effects are as listed. Paranoia regarding what is behind 1148, a feeling of being watched, a fixation on observing 1148 despite a desire to turn away. Within 5 minutes of the appearance of these symptoms, subjects report sighting transient figures as part of 1148. These figures, which should not be present as a part of a true reflection, are described as disappearing upon intentional viewing and include a man cloaked in a black hood, a large winged biped, and a pair of glowing eyes. Within an additional 5 minutes of exposure, subjects express an irrational desire to approach 1148. Reasons are varied, but are often explained as wanting to close 1 or draw a blind, despite the fact that 1 is neither capable of opening nor has any covering. Upon moving within 2 centimeters of 1148, an unseen force is witnessed to act upon the subject, drawing them closer. While invisible to external observers, various hysterical victims describe a pair of disembodied arms emerging from 1148. Said limbs extend to approximately elbow length and are assumed to be humanoid, acting to pull the subject inside 1148. No subject has yet been recovered following this event. Addendum. At the present time, no method of independently containing 1148 can be ascertained. Equal illumination of both sides of 1 is expected to remove 1148, but based on information gathered before its collection, it will most likely be transported to another suitable reflective surface. All known appearances of 1148 have occurred on unbacked vertical plates having at least 1 meter of clearance behind them, and which are capable of transmitting light through their entirety, e.g. windows, sliding doors, windscreens. Proximity is thought to be the deciding factor in this transfer, but testing has been postponed due to the large risk of breach. Experiment log. Okay. The below is a transcript of the experiences of D31415 with 1148 as proctored by Dr. Blank. Subject enters the illuminated side of containment chamber. Okay, Doc, so what am I supposed to do? There's nothing in here but a chair and a window. No action is required at this time. All you must do is remain in the room. How do you feel? Fine, I guess. Am I supposed to feel anything? Hey, is there something behind that window? I can't tell where it goes. Please refrain from asking questions. Only information regarding your emotional and mental state is needed at this time. Okay, an hour passes. Subject remains seated in the folding chair provided he faces the wall perpendicular to one. Do you notice any change in your mentality? Nothing so far, Doc. I'm just kind of bored sitting here. Couldn't you have thrown in a TV or a magazine or something? 13 hours later. Until this time, the subject has remained essentially stationary in the aforementioned chair. No feelings other than boredom have been reported. Hey, Doc, I think I'm starting to get something. I've been feeling sort of creeped out just sitting here. Please elaborate. How do you feel exactly? Dunno, just sort of uncomfortable in my own skin, you know. Isn't right in here. What did you say was behind that window again, Doc? Can you be more specific? Subject turns to face one and immediately resumes former position. It's like something's watching me. I don't like this. Can we stop now? What's behind that glass, Doc? You gotta tell me. There's no cause for alarm. Remain seated and continue the test. Subject again turns towards one, this time maintaining his gaze. Come on, Doc. This isn't cool. I swear something's looking at me from behind that thing. Why can't I see through it? What'd you guys put back there? Come on. 6 more hours. Subject has exhibited a pattern of glancing at one and then breaking eye contact for the last several minutes. Observations are increasing in duration and now last several seconds. Subject is also visibly agitated. Okay, Doc, this isn't funny anymore. I want to stop. I can't take it. Please specify. What can't you take? It's too much. I swear I'm not alone. What is behind that glass, Doc? I know there's something. What is it? Why can't I see it? Tell me what's going on. Subject is becoming increasingly fixated on one. Despite his request to leave the containment area, he has not left the chair. His pattern of glances continues. Holy shit, what was that thing? I swear it was there. Why can't I see it? Please describe what you have seen. It was like, I don't know, big, like a guy, or something in the window, but there were wings, definitely wings. There it is again! Wait, where'd it go? I'm not crazy, Doc! Why won't you tell me what's on the other side of the window? The subject displays a frenzied observation pattern. He is highly distressed by his observations. He remains seated. Please continue. Your experiences are vital to the experiment. No way, Doc, no way! I can see in the corner of my eye. Why can't I get a clear view? Why are you doing this to me? What the hell is behind that window? I know it can see me. Why can't I see what it is? Tell me what's going on! The subject has maintained his position but is becoming very erratic. He claims to see horrific images in his peripheral vision. No clear description has yet been provided. His view of one is now almost continuous. Hey, Doc. I'm feeling a bit better. Sorry for how I was acting before. It's creepy as hell in here, though. Are you still feeling distressed? Are there any more figures in the reflection? I still want to know what's behind that thing, Doc. Why won't you tell me? That thing seems to have disappeared mostly, though. I still don't like it in here. How much longer is this going to take? The experiment will continue until we've recorded all relevant data. Please attempt to describe what you have seen. Doc, how long has that window been open? Do you think it's a good idea to leave it with that thing out there? I think I should close it. Subject stands and begins to approach one. He never breaks eye contact. He appears unaware that one has no hinge and is incapable of moving. I gotta close it, Doc. There's no way I'm letting that thing in here. No way! Screw your test. I'm not dying for this. I don't care what you have back there, as long as it stays the hell put. Proceed. Subject makes physical contact with the frame of one. Holy shit! No! Jesus Christ, no! What's happening? Describe your experience. Bang it! Stop! Jesus fucking... The experiment has concluded following the absorption of 415. No remains were recovered following his disappearance. Well, sucks to be that guy. Erratic weather vane? What is it, like a chicken freaking out? It's Euclid. SCP-1149 is to be kept in a secure room at the westmost end of Site-37, located in a remote location on the northwest coast of the United States. To minimize the conspicuousness of its effects, 1149 is to be pointed due west towards the Pacific Ocean at all times. The Incident Report A. It is to be firmly attached to its support structure, which it is itself to be anchored to the floor. Accelerometric and atmospheric sensors attached to the support structure will transmit readings to a nearby monitoring center. Atmospheric conditions within 1149's containment room are to be kept stable with an airlock permitting entry. A single fan mounted in the wall of the room to the east of 1149 is to be tightly covered and locked in position until it is required for testing. When opened, airspeed shall not exceed 30 km per hour. Access is restricted to level 1 personnel with the approval of a superior. All test software and all test equipment must be inspected by at least 2 Site-37 technical review staff members. 1149's wires must be grounded during any test until more information about the object is obtained. Approval for complete testing of a vertical upward orientation is currently pending. Testing of a vertical downward orientation is prohibited at Site-37 due to its close proximity to major fault lines, and no site transfers are currently pending at this time. 1149's rough cone of effect has been classified as a conservation area, and all non-emergency watercraft and aircraft are disallowed access. 2 patrol teams using the United States Coast Guard motor lifeboats will monitor the boundaries of the cone of effect for trespassers. Patrol should not pursue trespassers, but should contact researchers in charge of 1149 for further instructions. Description: SCP-1149 is a rusted weather vane approximately 45 cm long and 30 cm tall, bearing no discernible manufacturer's mark or any particular identifying features aside from the common rooster ornamentation. The base of the vane is corroded and appears to have broken off from its mount sometime prior to recovery. Within the severed mount point, 2 frayed wires run further up into the vane. Anterior imaging shows them terminating just beyond the feet of the rooster and reveal no power source or other notable components. The wires are believed to have once connected to a control mechanism. 1149's anomalous properties appear to always be in effect, but are amplified in density and frequency when wind passes over it in the direction in which it is pointing. While active, weather activity will become erratic in the vicinity of 1149. Most of the anomalous effects will occur within a cone of effect, approximately 215 kilometers long with an arc of 5 degrees, originating from the object's arrow tip. While the frequency of appearance of these effects does taper sharply near the boundaries of this cone, anomalous effects have been observed on rare occasion well outside the cone of effect. When kept out of the wind, 1149 causes an anomalous weather event to occur within its cone of effect once every 15 minutes on average, with each event typically lasting between 10 seconds and 2 minutes, depending on the intensity of the event. When exposed to air traveling along its length, i.e. west in the current orientation, the events become more frequent and last longer. When exposed to winds between 25 and 40 km per hour, the events will be continuous at the center of the cone of effect, with events stopping and starting randomly near and beyond the border. Beyond 40 km per hour, events will begin to overlap, creating a continuous event growing in intensity until the speed of the wind passing over it decreases below this threshold. Incident Report A. The original containment procedures for 1149 had it secured in place pointing directly away from the Earth's surface. It was believed that this orientation will result in the lowest possible magnitude of abnormal weather effects. However, the object's effect on upper atmospheric layers was not predicted. In the days following initial containment, a slight yet noticeable increase in sprite electrical events and aurora effects was observed in Site-37. The frequency of these otherwise uncommon events was deemed to potentially draw undue attention to Site-37, and 1149's containment procedures were updated for a westward orientation. Addendum 1. 1149 was discovered in the ruins of a small coastal cottage in Blank, Oregon, after a strong storm had passed through the area. While the primary storm itself was not strange in and of itself, Foundation agents were dispatched to the area when highly anomalous weather effects were observed over the Pacific Ocean, focused in a rough cone shape emanating from Blank. Agents were unable to find the owners of the cottage, though evidence suggests that the property had been inhabited until a short time before the cottage's destruction. 1149 was found firmly affixed to the remains of what is assumed to be the interior wall of a shed. A wider search of the area was unable to locate the base or any further information regarding its origin or operation. Addendum 2. Wind Testing Log. All tests were conducted under close observation at Site-37. Weather stations took readings from Site-37 itself, as well as from observation vessels located at multiple points along the boundaries of the cone of influence. When high accuracy readings were required, a geostationary satellite was used. The wires leading into the base were grounded for these tests. How many tests did you do? That's a lot of tests. Okay, so the first one, no wind tested for 1 hour. Weather conditions prior to test: calm winds east-southeast at approximately 5 kilometers per hour, clear skies. Summary of events. 5 events were recorded during this period. The first was the formation and dispersal of an abnormally small cumulonimbus cloud, accompanied by expected degrees of rain and lightning, which lasted for 2 minutes. The second was a pocket of fog less than a kilometer in diameter, lasting for 45 seconds. The third was an area of intense heat, first noticed by the evaporation of seawater it caused. Temperatures were measured to reach 129 degrees Celsius at the height of the event, which lasted 30 seconds. The fourth event was another pocket of fog over a smaller area, accompanied by a temperature drop of approximately 10 degrees Celsius relative to the surrounding area, which lasted 3 minutes and 25 seconds. The final event was a small water spout forming without accompanying cloud cover. The cyclone lasted for 1 minute 10 seconds and remained in contact with the surface of the ocean for 30 seconds of that time. Cyclone wind speeds reached a peak of 112 kilometers per hour. Researchers note, for brevity's sake, the following laws will only note newly observed phenomenon. Okay, so I'm going to scroll down to the one that looks like it had some expunged stuff on it. There we go. Test 17. Blank 100 kilometers of wind tested for 27 seconds. Prior to test, calm winds east-northeast at approximately 10 kilometers per hour, clear skies. Observed effects. Clouds immediately began to form, starting at the center of the cone of effect and spreading outward. Cloud composition was determined to be a condensed mixture of water with small amounts of hydrogen, helium, and ammonia. Lightning strikes were frequent, occurring near continuously starting at approximately 3 minutes. At approximately 5 minutes, the temperatures climbed above 90 degrees Celsius, causing the ocean within the cone of effect to begin vaporizing at an increased rate. Observation vessels retreated and were able to avoid damage for the duration of the test. At approximately 15 minutes, cloud cover began condensing drastically and rotating rapidly, causing winds to reach speeds in excess of 400 kilometers per hour. At this point, the cone of effect had doubled in size due to indirect effect, and the ocean continued to vaporize at its accelerated rate. By 27 minutes, the rotating storm had reached 240 kilometers in diameter, with wind speeds recorded at blank 100 kilometers per hour. Small pockets of extremely high temperatures and pressure were observed, resulting in ionization of the air and bursts of light and sound similar to lightning. Satellite imagery reveals that at this point the storm bore a strong resemblance to data expunged. Testing was concluded at this point. The weather effects quickly dropped off in intensity but did not fully disperse until over 3 hours later. The storm made landfall 20 minutes after the conclusion of testing, but by this point clouds mostly consisted of water and caused damage no worse than a typical tropical storm of mid-level intensity. Researchers note, containment procedures updated. I think we can adequately test this thing without going over 30 kilometers per hour. We could have been in trouble if those poisonous clouds made landfall. Okay. Electrical testing log. All tests were conducted under closed conditions at Site 37. Weather stations took readings from Site 37 itself. Vessels. It was under 5 kilometers of wind speeds for each of these tests. The wires leading to its base were connected to varying electrical signals. Okay, so there's not as many tests of this. There's only 3, in fact. Okay, weather condition prior to test. They applied 5 volts, and it was similar effects to test 7, terminated early. A direct current seems to simply amplify the effect, no need to prolong the test. Test E4. Conditions: RS-232-like asynchronous serial communication transmissions, transmitting the looping output of a simple program, tested for 1 hour. Before the test, the winds were calm, winds northeast at approximately 10 miles per kilometer, light cloud cover. The effects were especially erratic. Multiple events would occur at once and would quickly disperse, followed by calm periods. At times, events would be grouped together, and at others they would have no apparent grouping pattern. Single events occurred at multiple points during testing as well. None of the observed events were unique. When timeline of observed behavior was comparable to the timeline of the program's output, no further patterns could be deduced. Okay, this one. 1 VAC 60 Hz, 1A applied to wires, tested for 2 minutes, 21 seconds. Immediately after testing began, a single event started approximately 25 kilometers directly west of 1149. A high pressure, high temperature pocket formed, vaporizing the ocean beneath it. Much of the resulting steam was drawn into the pocket, which began to rotate, quickly picking up speed. The cyclone of water vapor soon reached a height of approximately 0.4 kilometers, becoming hotter and denser as it drew more water into itself. By this point, wind speeds had exceeded 150 kilometers per hour. After 1 minute 30 seconds of testing, the cyclone began to emit light. After 1 minute 45 seconds, the cyclone had grown to approximately 1 kilometer high with an immediate area of effect of approximately 0.15 kilometers. Observation vessels nearest to the cyclone began to retreat due to the danger of the extreme light and heat. After 2 minutes 21 seconds of testing, the cyclone was clearly visible with no magnification from the observation satellite. The heat and electromagnetic field of the cyclone was measurable at Site 37, causing multiple containment alarms to be triggered. The closest observation vessels to the cyclone began to suffer heat damage as they continued to retreat. At this point, the electric signal was removed from 1149, its wires were grounded, and the wind in its chamber was shut off. This resulted in the cyclone quickly expanding and returning to normal pressure, ejecting extremely hot water vapor and superheated liquid water out of over a radius of over 8 kilometers, causing blank injuries and 1 fatality to the observational crew. The sudden expansion also caused a small tsunami, resulting in minor property damage along the coast, though it caused no civilian casualties. Researchers note, containment procedures updated, we should discontinue this line of testing until we know more about what we're dealing with. So it really does sound like the only reason this thing is rated Euclid instead of Keter is because they can control it by not adding electricity or wind to it. And that brings us to the passengers, which are safe. All newly identified instances of SCP-1150 must be cataloged and subject to biannual reconfirmation, as per the safe category tracking procedures of the AGIS protocol. All SCP-1150 manifesting and disposable dudes should be housed in standard isolation cells or in dormitories containing only other instances of 1150. Outside of approved testing procedures, disposable 1150 must not be permitted prolonged greater than 15 seconds, touch contact with other humans or sentient animals via skin contact, or through thin or conductive fabrics. Note this is a cautionary measure only, as 1150 can transfer to unwilling or unaware subjects only in unusual circumstances, such as those delineated in the 1150 research log. Description: SCP-1150 are sentient entities with human-like psychology that share bodies with living human hosts through poorly understood means. They are aware of all behaviors, interactions, and emotional states of their hosts, but cannot usually perceive individual thoughts or memories. They appear to be immune to all amnestics, excluding a slight susceptibility to blank, which is likely due to neurological damage to the host at high doses. While the host is conscious, there is no known means of detecting the presence of 1150, save for the occasional brief appearance of anomalous REM-like EEG traces in some subjects, namely sleep spindles and K-complexes. The Foundation currently tracks 38 instances of 1150, mainly 3 instances of disposable dudes for testing purposes, employs 2 instances along with their hosts, and maintains 1 instance in Level 3 containment for security reasons. When the human host of an instance of 1150 falls asleep, they immediately enter REM sleep, and the 1150 entity gains control of the body for a period of 5 to 16 hours. This duration varies with the mental fortitude and willingness of the host and the relative strength of the entity. While the SCP is in control, it acts, behaves, and generally has physiological reactions identical to those of a normal human, albeit one with memories and personality traits different from those of the host. At the end of its period of control, 1150 becomes sluggish and appears to sleep. 1 to 2 minutes later, the host awakens and regains control of their body. Hosts generally report that they are fully rested and generally unaware of what has transpired while they were asleep. Note, however, that individuals who have hosted 1150 for prolonged periods, several years or more, become gradually more aware of the actions of their passenger. 1150 can be transferred from host to host through physical contact. While it appears that almost any skin-to-skin contact is sufficient to transfer 1150, direct forehead-to-forehead contact allows for transfer at times as low as 15 seconds. Conversely, transfer takes approximately 4 minutes via hand or foot contact. If the contact is disrupted at any point during the transfer, the entity remains in the original host. Recipients of 1150 report a pleasant buzzing sensation and exhibit a slightly elevated stress response but appear otherwise unaffected by this transfer. In all instances save for those documented in the attached experiment log, the recipient of 1150 must be willing to accept the entity. There are no known means for destroying an instance of 1150, though they can be incapacitated indefinitely by killing and interring the host. The Foundation first became aware of 1150 on June 27, 1982, shortly after the FBI raid on the Kismet Doorway cult in Bloom Hill, Arkansas. Foundation sources within the Bureau learned of a high-ranking cult member in FBI custody with potential SCP properties. The Foundation arranged a transfer to Site 40 due to its proximity to blank, and there were and there conducted the initial interviews with the entity, currently classified as SCP-1151. One subsequently assisted in the identification of 3 additional instances of 1150 associated with the Kismet doorway. Addendum. On December 10, 2008, the recovery of sensitive documents in a raid on Marshall Carter and Dark Limited indicates that MC&D are currently employing at least 2 instances of 1150 to infiltrate the Foundation as sleeper agents to obtain classified information on SCPs and Foundation security. These entities are being carried completely unknown to the SCP employment hosts and are able to see, hear, and experience everything that the host does. It is unknown how these agents are getting information back to MC&D, given that Foundation research has not revealed any outward manifestations of 1150 when they piggyback on an unwitting host. Okay, interview. Okay, the interviewed is Jonas something, and the interviewer is Agent Adrian Barton. Okay, we're recording. Do I speak into this? No, leave it there. It will pick up our voices anywhere in the room. Right. You indicated that you would be willing to answer some questions for us. Within reason, yes. Are you Jonas? In a sense, I'm sharing his body. I'm sure he's quite agreeable with our arrangement. Can you explain those 2 statements? Sure. Jonas has allowed me to use his body. He thinks I'm a manifestation of his god and is happy to let me do my work. Are you a god? Of course not. As far as I know, Blank made him up, but he may be remembering from before. Blank, the head of the Kismet Doorway group. How are you involved with that group? All the higher-ups are like me. We ride your bodies if you let us. I was 4th in command out of the 6 of us. And all 6 of you were, body snatchers? We call ourselves passengers. We switch bodies from time to time. Blank said we could live like kings, and I believed him. It's clear to me now that he's quite insane. I disavow his ridiculous cult. You mentioned that Blank may have remembered from before. Before what? Before we were awakened. That was in 1911 when the Englishman Davies unearthed our bones in Persepolis. You can't remember anything from before that? No. Well, maybe one thing. Darkness, and before that, wailing and screaming, and before that, a great consuming fire. I remember pain too. So that could be a dream. Blank says that we were worshipped like gods then. Utter insanity. May I change course a bit? How did you get your current body? Jonas gave himself to me just over a year ago. Before that, I was Annie Page, who was wife to Blank at the time. I was tired of that, so I transferred to Jonas. Transferred how? We touch. Usually we press our heads together in prayer. This way it goes more smoothly. I pour myself from one human vessel to the next, like water from one bowl to another, and then I see with Jonas's eyes speak with his mouth, love with his genitals, and when I'm not using them, he's himself. So, you see that I've not hurt anybody. That's all for now. Thank you for your time, Mr. Blank. Agent Barton, one last thing. May I be transferred to a larger cell until this trial? This area is inadequate for my needs. I'll see what I can do. Experiment log. That's a lot of experiments. I'm not sure if I really need to read the experiment log, but if you guys want to see it, I'll swing back for it. Okay, so that's the 5 of those. Now, initially I was intending on this being 25 entries because Christmas is the 25th of December, haha. But at this point, I kind of want to stop at 1150 so that I can remember where to continue from at 1151. So, also the video was already past 2 hours long if I've got my math right. So who knows how long editing is going to take. So I'm going to end it here instead of doing 25. I'd apologize, but it's not like I told you I was going to do that. So, this has been Anachi Sasuke. This has been Let's Read the SP Foundation Wiki. I believe it's episode 227. If you liked it, a like and a subscribe will be groovy. If you didn't, you don't need to do either one of those things. If you want to click the bell, you can do that as well so that you're notified of future uploads. And I will see y'all in the next one. Later.